Chapter 83. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online can be found here. The old doctor couldn't help but admire Gu Jiao's medical skills again. There was no cure for heartache. This kind of illness was truly incurable in this day and age. It was already a miracle that it was able to get better. The young master's pulse is good. Continue to take the medicine. He didn't know that Gu Jiao had given the medicine to Gu Yan a few days ago. He continued to act. This old man refined for a long time and finally finished refining the medicine last night. Last Gu, did you bring the medicine? Remember to give it to young Master Gu later. Gu Jiao, I already gave it to him more than 10 days ago. She was suddenly exposed. Gu Yan rolled over on the bed laughing. The matter in the small garden finally reached the head steward's ears. In the past few days, the Marchioness had caught a cold. She was afraid that the illness would spread to Gu Yan. With Gu Yan's health, even a small cold could take his life. So she moved to the orchid courtyard at the back alone. Marquis Gu made all the decisions in the matter. Thus, the head steward reported it to Marquis Gu. He didn't add any details and only described the matter from beginning to end, including how Gu Jiao pulled the fence to save the puppy, the dispute between Yuru and Gu Jiao, as well as how she accidentally damaged Gu Yan's peony, and how Nanny Fong angered Gu Yan. The head steward sighed. Yuru is from the capital and has always looked down on the servants in the matter. This time, she learned her lesson. It's just a pity for Nanny Fong. Marquis Gu coldly snorted. What's there to pity? She chased everyone out. I think she's been a steward for too long and forgot that she's just a servant. Whether or not he recognized that child wasn't someone that a lowly servant could bully. The head steward was a bit confused. What's wrong with being a servant? Isn't that still a higher status than the little medicine boy? What's more, Nanny Fong is the Marchioness's concubine, and the Marquis has always thought highly of her. Why did he suddenly say such harsh words? Marquis, Gu asked, aren't they coming in the afternoon? Brought forward? Why didn't anyone report this to me? The post said it was in the afternoon. The second boss planned to come in the afternoon, but he didn't expect Gu Jiao to be so straightforward and leave in the morning. Generally, the doctors among the people would not be able to see the Marquis. At most, they would kowtow to the Marquis after the treatment to get a chance to show their faces. Therefore, the steward did not report to the Marquis in advance. Since senior servant Fong had been scolded, the head steward naturally didn't dare to shirk the responsibility. It's this servant's fault. Please forgive me, Marquis. Where is he? Marquis Gu asked. I think they went to the young master's courtyard. The young master really thought too highly of the people from Huichun Hall. Even if those servants did something wrong, there was no need to drive out senior servant Fong and Yuru, right? If the Marquise and the young miss knew about this, wouldn't they be in trouble? This Marquis will go and take a look, Marquis Gu said and stood up from the chair. Marquis, the head steward called out to him, those people outside, how should we deal with them? Marquis Gu pondered for a moment. Leave senior servant Fong and send the rest away. Senior servant Fong was Madame Yao's escort. If he sent her away, it would be hard to explain to Madame Yao. His son could drive people out, but he could not bring them back. It was hard to be a father, but it was even harder to be a husband. Moreover, other than having a somewhat annoying personality, senior servant Fong didn't have any bad intentions. She was very loyal to Madame Yao and did her job well. Should we send Miss Yuru away as well? The head steward asked. Marquis Gu coldly said, shouldn't we send away this kind of condescending maidservant who framed others for the new year? Will you take responsibility if she leads Jinyu astray? The head steward hurriedly responded, yes, yes, yes. This humble one will do it right away. Also, Marquis Gu ordered, tell senior servant Fong not to go to Yan Er's courtyard after she comes back. Yes. Gu Yan's temper wasn't good. Every month, he would drive away a group of people, so this matter didn't cause a huge uproar in the mountain villa at first. However, When people heard that senior servant Fang and Yuru were also kicked out, they were really surprised. In the past, no matter how angry the young master was, he wouldn't touch the people around the Marchioness and the young miss. What happened this time? The person involved, Gu Jiao, didn't know anything about everyone's doubts. After she exposed herself in front of Gu Yan, she quietly went to the front courtyard to take a breather. She wanted to be alone. It was also her fault for not informing the old doctor beforehand. However, she really didn't expect the old doctor to be so naughty. He actually learned the second boss and shopkeeper Wang's method of bragging. He had just finished decocting the medicine yesterday, but she had already given it to Gu Yan 10 days ago. She had been sold until she didn't even have her underwear left. Gu Yan was looking at her in the corridor with a smile. Gu Jiao, you're still looking, you're still looking. You're still smiling. I don't want my face. Gu Jiao turned the back of her head to Gu Yan. Coincidentally, the cute little puppy woke up at this moment. It started to whimper and look around for Gu Jiao. Gu Yan picked it up. The cute little puppy was scared as soon as it got close to Gu Yan. Its little body trembled and it whimpered. Gu Yan wasn't stingy with his death stare. He didn't have any love. He hated these cute little things, especially when it was in her arms. She hasn't hugged me before. Gu Yan stared at it with jealousy, as if he was going to pinch it to death in the next second. The cute little puppy felt Gu Yan's murderous aura and barked even louder. Ow! Gu Yan snorted. For her sake, I'll spare you. Although he hated this little thing, since she liked it, it was fine if he didn't hate it that much. When Marquis Gu stepped into the courtyard, he saw Gu Jiao and Gu Yan squatting on the front lawn to make a doghouse. There was a pile of wood scattered on the ground. Gu Jiao was in charge of chopping, Gu Yan was in charge of building, and Gu Jiao was also in charge of nailing. The two of them had a tacit understanding. Often, after Gu Jiao finished one step, Gu Yan knew what the next step was, even though he had never built a doghouse like this before. The two of them had the same taste. The servants brought in all kinds of mattresses to cushion the doghouse. The two of them either liked all of them or disliked all of them. The two of them were like children playing seriously, enjoying each other's company very much. Were they really fraternal twins? Gu Jinyu and Gu Yan grew up together. Marquis Gu had thought of countless ways to get the siblings closer, but the two of them just couldn't play together. Actually, it wasn't just Gu Jinyu. Other people also found it difficult to get along with Gu Yan. This child was full of thorns and would prick anyone who got close to him. Marquis Gu had never seen such an obedient son. His bad temper was gone, and so was that girl. She was much quieter. If that girl was always like this, she didn't seem to be so annoying. I don't want this. It's too ugly. Gu Yan said as he held a roof that Gu Jiao had made. But I don't think it's ugly. Gu Jiao said. This was the last step. Once the roof was nailed up, it would be finished. Gu Yan looked up at the sky. I don't care. I don't want it. Okay. Gu Jiao took apart the roof that she had painstakingly made and made a new one. The second boss was also quite puzzled. The girl was easily irritable. Other than Xiao Lulang, he had never seen her so patient with anyone. Gu Yan's little thoughts couldn't be hidden from Marquis Gu. He couldn't bear to see Gu Jiao continue to stay here after the doghouse was finished. Twins were always special. Even if they were doing the same thing, looking at twins was more interesting than looking at other children. Perhaps it wasn't a bad thing to acknowledge them. But if they did, Gu Jinyu would suffer some grievances. Marquis Gu was worried that Gu Yan would bully Gu Jinyu even more. If it was any other son, Marquis Gu could still strictly stop him. But Gu Yan had a congenital illness. If anyone made him unhappy, he could just kill them on the spot. Marquis Gu's head hurt. Marquis. Huang Zhong came over. What are you doing here? Marquis Gu moved outside so that the people in the yard couldn't see him. He didn't want to disturb the two children's play. Huang Zhong said seriously, I heard that Miss is here. I'm here to protect you so that you won't be beaten by Miss again. Marquis Gu gave him a cold stare. Is it because I can't beat her? I'm giving in to her. Oh. Huang Zhong didn't believe him. Thinking of something, Marquis Gu asked, Do you have silver needles? Yes. Huang Zhong took out a secret weapon box. What do you need silver needles for? Marquis Gu said. I want to take a drop of her blood. Huang Zhong asked, what do you want Miss Blood for? You don't believe that Miss is your biological daughter? Marquis Gu said angrily. Am I the one who doesn't believe it now? She doesn't believe it. Huang Zhong thought of Marquis Guyan's, I'm your father, and his mouth twitched. That's because there's something wrong with your way of saying it. Marquis Gu snorted. I don't care. If she doesn't believe it, I'll take out evidence to make her believe it. Huang Zhong said again, then why don't you tell Miss directly? Marquis Gu glanced at him. Do you think she'll give it to me if I tell her? Huang Zhong. She won't. But isn't it too much to prick Miss with needles? Why don't you prick her? Marquis Gu looked coldly at Huang Zhong. You prick her. Huang Zhong broke out in cold sweat. He didn't dare. Marquis Gu really went over with silver needles. When the people in the courtyard saw him, they all stood up and bowed. Even the second boss and the old doctor who were drinking tea in the courtyard stood up. He waved his hand, indicating for everyone to do what they were supposed to do and not make a fuss. He came to the front of the siblings. The light above his head dimmed. The two looked up at him and ignored him, continuing to bury their heads in the kennel. Marquis Gu, who was ignored, forget it. He was here to take blood. It was good that they ignored him. It would be easier for him to sneak up on them. He stood there and waited for the right time. In a moment, the two looked up at the same time and looked at him with disdain. Marquis Gu smiled. Do you not know where to do it? Let me help you. Gu Yan said with disdain, you're blocking the light. Marquis Gu's face darkened. He silently went behind the two. Soon, he found that this position was better. He could prick anywhere. One needle was enough. Marquis Gu secretly waited for the right time. Gu Jiao was nailing the needles on the roof when she suddenly felt two gazes that could not be ignored fall on her. She turned her head in annoyance and met Marquis Gu's gaze. Marquis Gu was ready to insert the needles. He did not expect Gu Jiao to be so sharp and almost caught him in the act. He put the hand that was holding the silver needles behind his back. Gu Jiao looked at his hand that was retracted and then looked at her own shoulder. She felt that his guilty look was very wretched. Don't get in our way here. Gu Yan sensed Gu Jiao's repulsion towards Marquis Gu and began to chase him away. Marquis Gu was so angry that he fell backwards. Was he still their father? If he was not his biological son, he would have beaten him to death. Marquis Gu would not give up so easily. If he could not do it openly, then he would do it secretly. He coughed lightly and said, It must have been hard on you all. Regarding my son's illness, I have many things to ask. I see that Miss Gu is tired. Why don't you go to the side room to rest? Hu Erjia and Dr. Li, follow me to the study. Hu Erjia and Dr. Li went to Marquis Gu's study. Gu Yan and Gu Jiao carried the little puppy back to the side room. Gu Yan could not keep watching over Gu Jiao. Taking advantage of the time when he went to the outhouse, Marquis Gu also found an excuse to leave the study. He secretly put some calming medicine in the tea and found a servant girl to deliver it to Gu Jiao. Once she fell asleep, it would be easy to take her blood. His idea was not bad, but unexpectedly, Gu Jiao smelled that something was wrong. She stopped the servant girl. Who asked you to deliver this tea? The servant girl said, It was Marquis Gu. Gu Jiao's eyes turned cold. He failed to reach out his perverted pig hands, so he planned to drug her. At this age, he was old enough to be her father. She did not expect him to be so perverted. Gu Jiao clenched her small fists. She went to the window and lifted the curtains. She saw Marquis Gu squatting sneakily under the windowsill. Gu Jiao's murderous aura was like a knife. Marquis Gu sensed that something was wrong from her murderous aura. His heart trembled as he took a step back and said, Well, listen to my explanation. I actually Buddha mountain no shadow feet. Ah, boom, bang, 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 thump, gulp. I don't know how to swim. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-_8964-2_896/115745103. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 84. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Huang Zhong found his master on a large tree about 100 steps away from the courtyard. Marquis Gu had been scooped up by Gu Jiao and hung on a large tree branch. It was like hanging a wet shirt. There wasn't a dry spot on his body, and it was dripping with water. When Huang Zhong saw him, he was shocked. Luckily, it was broad daylight. If it was nighttime, he might have thought that he had seen a ghost. Marquis, why did you hang yourself on a tree? Did I do it? It was that audacious girl. And why is your face swollen? It was still that girl. Every time he saw that girl, nothing good would happen. There wasn't a single part of his body that wasn't swollen. He finally realized that the girl was here to jinx him. I don't want to acknowledge her back. Gu Jiao bid farewell to Gu Yan. Gu Yan was very reluctant, but Gu Jiao promised that she would come for a follow-up examination very soon. Only then did he reluctantly let Gu Jiao go. He and Gu Jiao sat in his sedan chair together and sent Gu Jiao to the carriage. This action once again shocked the group of servants, causing their jaws to drop. One had to know that Gu Yan's sedan chair was his absolute private territory. Once, the young Gu Yan climbed in out of curiosity and was kicked down by Gu Yan. I'll let you sit in it next time, Gu Yan said to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao nodded. Okay. After Gu Jiao left the hot spring villa, she didn't immediately return to town. Instead, she went to Principal Li's house. Principal Li was at the academy, so there was only old Madam Li and the servants at home. Old Madam Li wasn't awake much in a day. It was said that sometimes she didn't even recognize Principal Li. But she seemed to recognize Gu Jiao and gave Gu Jiao a big handful of candies with a smile. Gu Jiao checked her body. She was fine, but she was old. Her memory was deteriorating and her body was aging. Gu Jiao left a basket of fresh goods for her. She noticed that old Madam Li was drooling at a mulberry tree outside the wall. Gu Jiao went out of the courtyard and planned to pick some mulberries for old Madam Li. But when she got closer, she realized that the mulberry tree wasn't wild on the side of the road. It was planted in the courtyard next door. Because the tree crown was so tall, it poked out of the wall of her house. Gu Jiao thought for a moment, then walked over and knocked on the door. Who is it? Accompanied by a low cough, the vermilion door was pulled open. The one who opened the door was a lady with an elegant temperament. Gu Jiao recognized her at first glance. She also recognized Gu Jiao. She used a handkerchief to cover her mouth and gently coughed. She then revealed a faint smile. Miss, it's you. Gu Jiao was stunned. She had come to pick mulberries. How does she run into the madam of the temple? Madam, you live so far away? To go from here to the temple to burn incense. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a long journey. My surname is Gu. Yaosher gently said. Gu. Was there a second rich and powerful Gu family in this world? The answer was no. Gu Jiao quickly guessed her identity, but she did not say that she was the Marchioness. Gu Jiao did not point it out. Yaosher invited Gu Jiao in. She had been sunbathing in the courtyard. She had a rattan chair and a table. She pointed at the wooden stool and said, Sit. Gu Jiao sat down. She found that there was not a single servant in the courtyard. Yaosher saw her confusion and said with a smile, I wanted to be alone for a while, so I had them go to the front yard. This is the backyard. Does Miss also live nearby? Gu Jiao said, I was passing by and saw that the mulberries were delicious, so I wanted to come in and ask, did I disturb Madame Gu? There's no such thing. Yao Shi was very happy to see Gu Jiao. She did not know why. I'll have someone pick them for you. Yao Shi called over a servant to pick mulberries for Gu Jiao. She pulled Gu Jiao into the courtyard and said, I still do not know Miss Name. Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao said. Yao Shi smiled in surprise. Your surname is also Gu? 500 years ago, we were family. Gu Yan had also said this before. It was no wonder they were mother and son. Yao Shi's situation was not very good. After saying a few words, she began to cough violently. Gu Jiao looked at her pale face and paused. She then said, Madame Gu, if you don't mind, can I take your pulse? Miss Gu is proficient in the art of medicine? I know a bit. Yao Shi smiled and reached out to place her hand on the table. The servant finished picking a basket full of mulberries and came over to ask Yao Shi to take a look. Yao Shi waved her hand to indicate for her to leave. The servant gently placed the mulberries on the table and left. Her pulse was not very good, but her actual situation was worse than it appeared. Gu Jiao calmly pulled back her hand and asked Yao Shi, Madame Gu, how is your sleep? Yao Shi replied, not very good. It's hard for me to fall asleep. Gu Jiao asked, appetite? Yao Shi slightly shook her head. I don't have much of an appetite. Gu Jiao paused. Was it like this before you caught a cold? Yao Shi, Gu Jiao, how long has it been? Yao Shi, I don't remember the exact time. In short, it's been a long time. Gu Jiao asked a few more questions. In truth, the imperial physicians had also asked her, but Yao Shi did not want to open her heart. Every time, she would answer half-heartedly. Yao Shi trusted Gu Jiao a lot and answered all of her questions truthfully. Gu Jiao then said, Madame Gu, you've seen a physician before, right? What did they say? Yao Shi bitterly smiled. They said that I was overly worried and told me to relax and not think too much. They also prescribed medicine, but it didn't have much effect, so I stopped eating it after that. That was it. The physician had said that she was overly worried. In her previous life, it would be called depression. But at the same time, she also had hysteria. Once it flared up, it would be very dangerous. Gu Jiao took out 2 boxes of antidepressants from her medicine box and replaced them with a porcelain bottle. Yao Shi sat across from Gu Jiao. She only saw the lid of the medicine box and did not see what Gu Jiao had done. Gu Jiao handed the porcelain bottle to Yao Shi and told her how to use it. She then reminded her, Madame Gu, you must take this medicine. Only then will you get better. If the imperial physician's medicine had no effect, how could the medicine handed over by a young girl have any effect? But the young girl had worked for a long time, so Yao Shi could not bear to refuse her good intentions. She took the medicine and smiled. All right. Gu Jiao seriously looked into her eyes. You cannot throw away the medicine. You must promise me that you will take the medicine on time. Yao Shi had not seen such sincere eyes in a long time. The people that wanted to cure her were not curing her. They were curing the madam of the Marquis manor. If she was not the Marquis wife, no one would even look at her. But the young girl in front of her was someone that truly wanted to cure her. Yao Shi wanted to pay Gu Jiao for her treatment. Gu Jiao shook the mulberries in her basket. Yao Shi smiled. However, Gu Jiao had indeed asked Yao Shi for some extra money for her treatment, but it was not money. Instead, it was pastries that she had personally made. Yao Shi was very happy. She had not been this happy in a long time. Every time she saw her, she was always lucky. If she was not being saved, she was being cured. This girl, was she her lucky star? Perhaps it was because they were the same age, but Yao Shi quickly thought of Gu Jinyu. Although they were mother and daughter, her relationship with Jin Yu was not as close as her relationship with Gu Yan. Even if Gu Yan had a sour face all day, she could still feel Gu Yan's need for her. She stayed in the villa and let Gu Yan go to the capital. Gu Yan would not do that, but Jin Yu could easily leave. She seemed to yearn for the prosperity of the capital and the liveliness of the Marquis manor. This did not mean that Jin Yu did not love her as a mother, But she was not the only mother in Jin Yu's world. Without her, Jin Yu could still live well. She thought that this might be a good thing. After all, if one day Gu Yan was no longer around, she did not want to live. At least she did not have to worry about Jin Yu. On the way back, Gu Jiao asked the second master about the Marquis Manor. "What are you referring to?" the second master asked. "The Marquis's wife," Gu Jiao said. Asking about the Marquis's wife was not strange. After all, they had already met 3 of the masters of the hot spring villa. There was only the Marquis that they had never met before. The second master did not feel that Gu Jiao had any motives. He thought for a bit, then said, "That Marquis' surname seems to be Yao. Speaking of which, there is a story. She is Marquis Ding and second wife. Her family declined, and her father had an idle position in the Ministry of Revenue. It is said that he offended someone, and in the end, he could not even keep his idle position. She and the previous Marquis's wife were close friends. Before the previous Marquis's wife passed away, she went to visit her a few times. There were rumors in the capital that she took advantage of the previous Marquis's illness to hook up with Marquis Ding, and Gu Jiao frowned slightly. She did not seem like this kind of person. The second master continued. The truth is that she never even met Marquis Ding and in the Marquis Manor. How do you know? Gu Jiao asked. The second master faintly smiled. Our Hui Chun Hall has some reputation in the capital. The imperial physician that treated the previous Marquis's wife had some dealings with my family. However, the previous Marquis's wife had indeed asked Yao Shi to take care of her children. Gu Jiao asked, the previous Marquis's wife had children? The second master said, that's right. She had 3 sons. The last 2 were twins. The previous Marquis's wife had the idea of letting Yao Shi be Marquis Ding and second wife. Unfortunately, Yao Shi did not agree. Yao Shi personally refused. The imperial physician was brewing medicine in the back and heard everything. But after going around in circles, Marquis Ding finally met Yao Shi and took a liking to her. Marquis Ding directly proposed marriage to the Yao family, and the Yao family agreed without another word. You should be able to guess what happened after that. All sorts of rumors began to slander Yao Shi in the capital. The Marquis's wife has been staying at the hot spring villa for the past few years. First, it was to accompany Gu Yan in his recovery. Second, it was because she was not at ease in the capital. Marquis Ding did not have much affection for his first wife. On the contrary, he doted on Yao Shi. With Yao Shi's background, she was not qualified to be his second wife. It was he who insisted on marrying Yao Shi. But the more he doted on Yao Shi, the more people felt that Yao Shi was a fox. In reality, the second master had seen Yao Shi once. She was a woman without any schemes. Her eyes were as clean as the bottom of a lake. If she was a fox, then there was no one else in the world who was not. 10 days after the end of the capital examination, the government released the results. The examinees all headed to the government office early in the morning to see if they had passed the examination. The number of people admitted to the capital examination was very limited. Out of the hundreds of examinees, only 50 were admitted. They were divided into 2 grades, A and B. There were 10 people in a grade and the rest were in B grade. Feng Lin was woken up by Du Ruohan. Du Ruohan had slipped out of the governor's manor before the sun rose. Feng Lin, quickly get up. You lost money. Du Ruohan made a one-sided bet with Feng Lin. He bet that Xiao Lulang would not pass the examination. The bet was 10 taels of silver. Feng Lin yawned as he opened the door. I haven't eaten breakfast yet. Du Ruohan immediately stuffed a big meat bun into his mouth and pulled him downstairs. Feng Lin took the bun. Lulang also hasn't eaten yet, Du Ruohan said. All right. He has hands and feet. Don't tell me he will starve to death. Du Ruohan pulled Feng Lin to the entrance of the government office without any explanation. There were already many examinees standing there, surrounding the notice board so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Du Ruohan used a Herculean effort to pull Feng Lin to the innermost part. In Du Ruohan's view, the chances of a fool like Xiao Lulang passing the examination were really not high. Wait for the money. Feng Xiaodun. I'm not Feng Xiaodun. I also didn't. Halfway through his words, Feng Lin's gaze landed on the eye-catching name that no one could ignore. He suddenly choked and pointed at the list. You look. Du Ruohan looked in the direction of his finger. In a rather eye-catching position, he saw a name. Capital Examination Head, Xiao Lulang. Du Ruohan's jaw almost dropped. It can't be? That fellow actually passed? And he's even the examination head? How is that possible? What happened to the promised little fool? The fellow who couldn't even finish memorizing the three-character classic actually became the capital examination head? The capital examination head was much more difficult than the county examination head. It wasn't even on the same level. Furthermore, the examination question this time was set by his perverted uncle. That made it even more difficult for others to even begin with. Feng Lin stretched out his hand. Du Ruohan, what? Feng Lin, a bet is a bet. No, didn't you say you didn't want to bet with me? You've been led astray by that fellow. Feng Lin took all of Du Ruohan's belongings and happily returned to the inn. He gave half of the money to Xiao Lulang. There was no need for him to announce the results. The person who came to announce the good news had already gone to the inn to congratulate him. Digression. There's another chapter. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels that can't be found online can be found here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896422826/115744829. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 85. The latest chapter of the book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are read for free. Novels with a deeper meaning that could not be found online are available here. When the owner of the inn found out that there was a top examinee in the capital examination, he immediately refunded Xiao Lulang and the other two. He even provided them with the most expensive food and wine. If the inn did not have it, he could even order the waiter to buy it. Although Feng Lin had already passed the county-level examination, his results were not considered top-notch. Naturally, he did not receive such treatment. Following Xiao Lulang this time around, he could be considered to be in the limelight. It was worth mentioning that Xiao Lulang did so well that his essay was circulated on the day the results were released. Naturally, many people came to befriend Xiao Lulang, but they were all rejected by Xiao Lulang. The imperial examination system of the current dynasty was greatly adjusted compared to the previous dynasty. After the capital examination in the previous dynasty, there was a 2 to 3 month wait for the college examination. However, the college examination in the current dynasty was closely scheduled on the second day of the release of the results. During these 10 days of waiting for the results, most of the examinees spent their time in fear. After much difficulty, they were certain that they had passed the examination, but they did not even have a chance to breathe before they had to enter the next round of examination. This undoubtedly increased the pressure on the examinees. There were 2 rounds in the college examination, the 8-part essay and the essay. The essay was as difficult as the capital examination. The 8-part essay was still set by Provincial Governor Zhuang. Xiao Lulang had already obtained 2 top examinees. If he obtained the top examinee for the lower house examination, he would be a junior 3 examinee. There had not been a junior 3 examinee in Pingcheng for almost 10 years. All the officials in the magistrate court had high hopes for Xiao Lulang. However, to everyone's surprise, Xiao Lulang actually handed in a blank paper. The college examination and the capital examination were not very different in scope. They still required the examinee to pass the 3 examinees. However, there were more questions, and the types of questions were more tricky. However, it was not to the extent of handing in a blank paper. Of course, in every round of examination, the examinees could not be excluded from various unexpected situations. There was once when a student smeared something dirty on the paper, causing the entire paper to be invalid. That was the triennial provincial examination. 3 years of hard work by the examinee had gone down the drain. However, handing in a blank script was still too rare, especially when this blank paper was given to Xiao Lulang, who had left a deep impression on Governor Zhuang during the county examination. If Governor Zhuang remembered correctly, there were a total of 12 examiners marking the papers. 11 of them gave Xiao Lulang's 8-part essay a grade. The only one who wasn't given an A grade was Provincial Governor Zhuang. He gave Xiao Lulang B. But if one knew that Provincial Governor Zhuang only gave ding grades to others, one would be able to see how rare and valuable Xiao Lulang's results were. There were 11 A's. Even if he had written something randomly, he could still be ranked in the top 10. However, Xiao Lulang was ranked 3rd from the bottom. This surprised Governor Zhuang. He pulled out the test paper and found that it was a blank test paper. Governor Zhuang also asked someone to take out Xiao Lulang's test paper for the prefectural examination. If 6th young Master Zhao's script for the prefectural examination had been terrible, this matter might have passed. However, 6th young Master Zhao's script for the prefectural examination had been a complete set. In other words, he didn't answer a single question correctly. And he only used an hour, said the invigilator who came to deliver the test paper. This invigilator was the one who sat across from Xiao Lulang during the county examination. The test paper was masked. After it was handed in, no one knew who the test paper belonged to. However, after Xiao Lulang took the prefectural examination, his 8-legged essay had spread. The invigilator had secretly gone to the inn to see what this prefectural examination had looked like, and how he was able to write such a wondrous essay. In the end, he discovered that the other party was the examinee who had only taken an hour to write the essay and essay. Provincial Governor Zhuang's standards were too high. To be able to answer all the questions correctly was not enough to reach the apex. However, if it was only an hour, then it was very amazing. Out of all the people he knew, the only one who could do better than this examinee was the late young Marquis of Zhao. Provincial Governor Zhuang immediately sent someone to the inn to find Xiao Lulang and ask him about the situation. I didn't hand in a blank test paper, Xiao Lulang said. If what Xiao Lulang said was true, then someone must have touched his test paper. This was a big matter. The management of the test papers in the imperial examination was very strict. When every examinee handed in their test paper, there would be 2 invigilators who would collect the test paper together. They would also put down their fingerprints when they masked the test paper, proving that they were the ones who took the test paper. If there was a problem with the test paper, only the 2 of them would be responsible. It was worth mentioning that all the invigilators were matched by drawing lots after they entered. They were the same as the examinees and could not contact the outside world until the end of the examination. It was easy to bribe one of the invigilators, but to bribe 2 at the same time was too difficult. This was because no one could guarantee that the 2 invigilators would coincidentally be assigned to the same test paper, much less guarantee that they would coincidentally be assigned to the same test paper as Xiao Lulang. Even so, Governor Luo still called the invigilators over for questioning. The 2 of them both said that they did not violate any rules. Is it a blank test paper? I'm not sure. Before handing in the test paper, the examinees would stamp a blank paper on it. This is to prevent us from prying into their handwriting. Provincial Governor Zhuang nodded and turned to Governor Luo. After passing through the hands of the 2 of them, the test paper would be masked, right? Only after all the invigilators have finished marking will they open the name. Then I'm very curious. How did that person recognize Xiao Liulong's test paper and successfully switch it to a blank test paper? Governor Luo thought for a moment and said, "There are two ways. One is to hand out the test paper, and the other is to mark the test paper." Xiao Liulang is the head of the prefectural examination. During the academy examination, he sits first. This is the rule. The first test paper to be handed out is his test paper. Then, they can tamper with the test paper beforehand. Even if the test paper is masked, they can still recognize his test paper. Or perhaps, an invigilator obtained Xiao Liulong's test paper from the prefectural examination and took down Xiao Liulong's notes. When they were marking the test paper, they could recognize Xiao Liulong's test paper based on the notes. No matter which one it is, there must be someone among the examiners marking the test paper who is not clean. The examiners for the prefectural examination and the academy examination were not from the same batch. This was to prevent someone from remembering the examinee's handwriting and thus affecting their judgment of the examinees. However, this did not rule out the possibility that someone had secretly obtained the prefectural examination's test paper. After all, after marking the test paper, the secrecy of the test paper would be greatly reduced. Other than Provincial Governor Zhuang, the other 11 examiners were all escorted into a secret room to be interrogated by Governor Luo. Under the heavy punishment, Governor Luo was able to find the real culprit. The culprit was an examiner with the surname of Wu. He had worked in the examination hall for 20 years and was usually as honest as an antique. Governor Luo originally thought that he was the least likely culprit. It seemed that not betraying wasn't because one's morals were high, but because one's bargaining chip wasn't high enough. That person gave me 1,000 taels of silver to destroy Xiao Liulong's test paper. I originally prepared ink and planned to disguise the situation, as if Xiao Liulang had accidentally dirted the test paper. I have seen many situations like this, and they all treated the test paper as trash. No one would go and verify it. However, before I could make a move, Lord Wang, who I had sent away, returned. My hand trembled and I spilled the ink on myself. It was too late to find another ink. Coincidentally, I had a few blank test papers with me, so I took one and replaced it. What did that person look like? He was masked so I didn't see clearly. Voice? How tall? I don't remember. I really don't remember. Governor Luo reported the results of the interrogation to Provincial Governor Zhuang. Generally speaking, if there was cheating in the imperial examinations, everyone's test paper would be invalidated, and they would have to take the test again. Not only would this hurt the government, it would also cause many examinees to break down. Examinations had always been a combination of ability and luck. No one could guarantee that they would perform better in the next round, and there was no guarantee that other examinees wouldn't take advantage of the situation to surpass them. Of course, to the examinees who failed the role, this was undoubtedly a free opportunity. However, the problem was that even if Xiao Liulong's test paper was replaced with a blank one, he still passed with 11 A's and 1 B's. In other words, those who should have been accepted were all accepted. Those who failed were supposed to fail. The only difference was that their rankings might have advanced by 1 place, while Xiao Liulang had lost his position as the head of the table. Governor Luo sighed. That person probably didn't expect that Xiao Liulang would still be able to pass the examination. It's a pity. Xiao Liulang should have had the chance to become the head of a table. Provincial Governor Zhuang said seriously, this matter can be big or small. If you look at it from a long-term perspective, it is a small matter. If you stop here in your life, then it will be a big matter. Minor 3 yuan was enough for an elementary scholar to be in the limelight for a while, but only for a while. If he really wanted to make a name for himself, he had to continue taking the provincial examination. After becoming a high scholar in the provincial examination, he would then enter the capital for the imperial examinations. The college examination wasn't the end of everything. On the contrary, it was the starting point of the imperial examinations. Provincial Governor Zhuang said, this matter is up to him to decide. Go and ask him if he wants to take the exam again. If he wanted to take the exam again, he wouldn't be the only one taking the exam. Instead, all the examinees would have to go through both the 8-legged essay and sutra examination again. Governor Luo went to the inn. When he saw Xiao Lulang, he tactfully explained his purpose for coming and asked Xiao Lulang if he wanted to take the exam again. Xiao Lulang didn't directly answer his question. Instead, he opened the window and let him see the students on the first floor who were exchanging their results with each other. The rankings had already been released. Those who didn't pass were covered in dirt, while those who passed were glowing. At this moment, no one knew what he was experiencing in his heart. "These examinees who passed are all innocent, right?" he suddenly said. Governor Luo was stunned when he heard this. After a while he said hoarsely, "Yes, you didn't fail the examination. Therefore, it doesn't matter if any of them took up an extra spot in the provincial examination." Xiao Lulang looked at the examinees and said, "If they take the exam again, there will be some of them who won't pass, right?" Governor Luo sighed and nodded. This was inevitable. After taking the exam again, one's mentality would collapse, and it would be difficult to perform normally. "Then what about you, Governor Luo?" Xiao Lulang asked. What?" Governor Luo was stunned. Xiao Lulang said, "I heard that Governor Luo's term of office is coming to an end. The re-examination is a big matter and needs to be reported to the court. Will it affect Governor Luo's re-election?" Governor Luo helplessly nodded. The court's control over the imperial examination was extremely strict. If he were to take the exam again because of fraud, his official position would be over. Xiao Lulang calmly asked, "How much does Governor Luo think your future is worth?" Governor Luo was stunned. This. Was this brat openly extorting him? Xiao Lulang calmly said, "Governor Luo is an honest official and can't take out too much money. However, that person should have spent a lot of money to bribe the examiner, right? The victim is me. Shouldn't Governor Luo compensate me with this money? He could buy back his own future without spending a single copper coin. He could also gain a good reputation as an honest official. This transaction was worth it." Governor Luo fell head first into the pit that Xiao Lulang had dug. Of course. I will definitely send 1,000 taels to candidate Xiao." Xiao Lulang continued, "Also, if no one tampered with the exam papers, I would be a grade 3 examiner. Governor Luo, you don't deny this, right?" Governor Luo nodded vigorously. Of course. Both the provincial governor and I have witnessed examinee Zhao's strength." Xiao Lulang sighed faintly. "But there's a reward for grade 3 examiners. I won't be able to get this reward now." Governor Luo was speechless. Why did it feel like this pit was a little big? The reward for grade 3 examiners was allocated by the court and distributed by the yamen. The yamen, the tribute court, and the county yamen would give a total of 100 taels. As Peace City Prefecture had not given out grade 3 examiners for the past 10 years, the reward had been doubled. In other words, Xiao Lulang should have received 200 taels. However, with the current situation, he could not use the public account. In other words, Governor Luo had to fork out the money himself. Governor Luo thought, I actually naively thought, that I wouldn't have to spend a single coin. I'm so stupid, really. The cheating incident ended with Governor Luo coughing up blood and forking out from his own pocket. Provincial Governor Zhuang was a distant relative of Governor Luo. Since the person involved did not pursue the matter, he did not report it to the court. Governor Luo's official position was saved, and the examinees did not have to break down anymore. Everyone was happy. As for the person who cheated, it should be an examinee who was jealous of Xiao Liulang's results and wanted to pull him down. Governor Luo said that he would continue to investigate in secret. When Xiao Lulang returned to the village, it was already the beginning of April. The village was filled with the warmth of late spring. The willow branches by the pond had sprouted, and strands of them drooped down on the surface of the water like a floating jade curtain. The crops in the fields had also grown, and they were green as far as the eye could see. He had come to the village around this time last year. Who would have thought that a year had passed in the blink of an eye? Uncle Zhang, who had just returned from the fields, turned his head and said to Auntie Zhang behind him, Wife, look, isn't that Lulang? Auntie Zhang's eyesight was better than her husband's. She looked over and nodded her head vigorously. Isn't that Lulang? Hey, the scholar is back. She also turned her head and shouted at the villagers who were working in the fields. Xiao Liulang's results had already spread to the village. Even though he had failed in the college examination, he had obtained first place in the county and prefectural examinations. He was also evaluated as a scholar. He was the second scholar in the village after Gu Das-hun. Early in the morning, the people from the county yamen had sent over a few dozen caddies of grain. The white rice looked even better than Gu Dashuan's. The villagers acted as if it was the first time they had met Xiao Lulang. They wanted to talk to him but did not dare to. After all, things were different now. He was a scholar. Uncle Zhang, Auntie Zhang. Xiao Lulang greeted the two of them. This family was warm-hearted. When Gu Jiao had menstrual cramps, it was Auntie Zhang who lent Xiao Lulang brown sugar. The two of them were so flattered that they could not continue the conversation. After that, Xiao Lulang met a few more villagers one after another. He greeted them, neither too warm nor too cold. It was no different from his usual cold appearance. Finally, he arrived at the door of his house. Because he did not inform his family in advance, his family did not know that he was coming back today. The sound of little Jing Kong's babbling could be heard from the backyard. Xiao Lulang stepped into the house. In the backyard that was filled with sunlight, Gu Jiao was washing little Jing Kong's hair. Little Jing Kong's round, bald head had green hair stubs. He proudly asked Gu Jiao how long his hair was and whether it was longer than a few days ago. The old lady was sitting on a rattan chair, watching the little handsome monk come out of the bath while eating melon seeds. Xuan Ningxiang's 1-year-old son, Go Dan, was sitting on a small stool beside her. Go Dan was slowly eating corn on the cob. Little Jing Kong was the first to notice Xiao Lulang. Little Jing Kong lowered his head and looked behind his crotch. He saw Xiao Lulang lying on the floor. He recognized him for a long time. Bad brother-in-law? Gu Jiao stopped scooping water and turned her head quietly. She looked at him and he looked at her in the same way. They hadn't seen each other for more than a month. Everyone in the family had changed. Little Jing Kong's hair stubs had grown, and the old lady was getting younger. She seemed to have grown taller and looked more like a young girl. Her birthmark was still on her face, but it didn't look like an ugly red spot. Instead, it looked like an enchanting flower. It bloomed with a bright and moving color in her cold and lonely temperament. She was as beautiful as a peach. He had also grown taller, and the youthful air between his brows had faded a little, and there was a hint of nobility and elegance of a scholar. The two of them looked at each other in a daze. Neither of them spoke. Lulang, you're back? The old lady turned around and said in a light tone, Did you bring any delicious food? Xiao Lulang came back to his senses. Yes. He walked forward, but he didn't look at the door sill. He staggered and almost fell. Gu Jiao calmly turned around and continued to bathe little Jing Kong. However, as soon as she dipped the ladle into the water, she heard little Jing Kong cry out, It's so cold. Gu Jiao was embarrassed. She scooped the wrong water. Digression. Today's total is 12,000 words. It's the usual 6 chapters, so it's considered a small explosion. I wish everyone a happy meal. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/115743352. HTML Genius. Memorize the website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 86. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more exciting content. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. The old lady looked at Gu Jiao and then at Xiao Lulang. Her eyes were full of mystery. She felt that she was going to have a great-grandchild soon. Gu Jiao changed the topic seamlessly and asked Feng Lin. Xiao Lulang answered seriously. He went back to the academy. He went to the prefectural city for a month and missed a lot of classes. It was all thanks to Feng Lin this time. Gu Jiao would remember his kindness. While the two of them were talking, a few yellow chicks swaggered out. Xiao Lulang realized that he had started to raise chickens after leaving home for a month. Gu Jiao was not interested in raising chickens. Little Jing Kong liked the chicks from next door when he saw them. He asked Gu Jiao if he could raise a few. Gu Jiao said that he could raise them, but there was a condition. He had to take care of the chicks himself. He could not ask others to do the feeding and cleaning of the chicken feces. In order to let little Jing Kong understand the difficulty of raising chickens, Gu Jiao asked him to go to Xuan Ningxiang's house to feed the chickens for 2 days. Not only were there cute chicks, but there were also mature hens and roosters. Gu Jiao also told him that all the chicks that looked cute now would grow into hens and roosters one day. In the end, even this could not dissuade him. Gu Jiao could only let him raise her. He raised 7 of them, and all of them were chubby. He even gave them names from 1 to 7. She did not know how he could identify them. Xiao Lulang brought the old lady a specialty of pingcheng, candied red bayberries. At this time, the red bayberries had just borne fruit. The fruit was not big and had a strong sour taste. However, this type of bayberries was best preserved with sugar. The sweet and sour taste was not greasy. Xiao Lulang brought 2 jars. One jar had its core removed, and the other jar had its core. Although it was just 2 cans of food, this was the most famous candied red bayberry in Pingcheng. Since there were many students taking the exam, it was sold out almost every day as soon as it came out. Xiao Lulang went to line up in the middle of the night and shivered in the cold wind for a long time. The old madam took out a seedless dried bayberry and gave it to Gooden. Gooden was drooling. Gu Xiaoshun hadn't finished school yet. Xiao Lulang had also brought something for him. It was a complete set of wood-carving tools. The Zhao country had very strict control over iron. It was very difficult for ordinary people to buy such fine and complete ironware. Xiao Lulang had extorted money from Governor Luo to buy it. He watched as Xiao Liulang's bag deflated. Little Jing Kong walked his little chick. He didn't seem to care, but he glanced at Xiao Liulang's bag from time to time. Gu Jiao noticed his strange behavior and asked, Jing Kong, are you also looking forward to your gift? I'm not. Little Jing Kong turned his head away proudly. Bad brother-in-law would not buy him a gift. Xiao Lulang saw the little guy's awkwardness. They were already on bad terms. After being separated for more than a month, they could not even be considered distant. Xiao Lulang took out a burr puzzle from the bag. It's okay if you don't want it. I'll give it to Gooden. No. Little Jing Kong jumped down from the chair and snatched the burr puzzle. He's small. He can't play with it. Gooden looked at his little brother blankly. He didn't understand what had happened. Finally, it was Gu Jiao's. It was a very exquisite brocade box. Just by looking at the box, one could tell that it was expensive. Gu Jiao thought to herself and measured the length of the brocade box. Was it a hairpin? It was such an expensive box. It should be a silver hairpin at least. Silver hairpins were rare in the countryside. Most of them were wooden hairpins. The more extravagant ones were copper hairpins. Silver hairpins could only be bought by wealthy families. They would only be willing to wear them on very important days. Of course, the most important thing was that if a man gave a woman a hairpin, it would mean something unspeakable. Gu Jiao's face was full of, I love it, I love it, I love it. Click. Xiao Lulang opened the brocade box. It was not a hairpin, but a writing brush. Gu Jiao was dumbfounded. Xiao Lulang said, Your handwriting is not good. Other than the way you hold the brush, it has something to do with the writing brush. This is a weasel hairbrush made by a famous craftsman in Ping City. It's very suitable for your strength. He introduced her in a serious manner, but Gu Jiao was not in a good mood. Was the hairpin a hot potato? Why did he give her a writing brush? This was like giving a student who only wanted to spend money to play games a set of exam questions. How could she refuse? Seeing Gu Jiao trying to hold back her anger, old Madame Fu laughed so hard that her stomach hurt. There was a need that Lu Lang thought you needed. Gu Jiao hugged the weasel hairbrush, her face as black as charcoal. Then Xiao Lulang handed her a copper token with the words Zhou Ji Bank engraved on it. I've saved your household expenses in the bank. You can get it yourself if you need it. Xiao Lulang did not mention the exact amount, and Gu Jiao did not ask. She was still immersed in her emotions of being given a writing brush. What Gu Jiao did not know was that this weasel hairbrush was more expensive than all the other gifts put together. It was not something that could be bought with money. Gu Jiao did not lose her temper for too long. She still remembered the important matter. Before leaving, Gu Jiao had told Feng Lin to keep an eye on Xiao Yolang's walking practice every day. Now she wanted to see the results. Gu Jiao and Xiao Lulang went to the west room to check on his ankle. The wound from the surgery was almost invisible. Gu Jiao reached out and pinched it. Does it still hurt? Xiao Lulang shook his head. It doesn't hurt anymore. It doesn't hurt at all? Gu Jiao raised her head and looked at him. He nodded. Yes. Gu Jiao pinched his calf again. It felt good. It seemed that Feng Lin did not slack off. The weakened muscles had basically recovered after 4 months of rehabilitation. In other words, Xiao Lulang did not have any weakness in his legs anymore. He still did not throw away his crutches. The biggest problem might be his psychological state. Gu Jiao had seen many similar cases in her previous life. Some people were afraid of getting injured again and overprotected themselves. However, most of these cases would gradually fade with the passage of time and get better. The other case was more complicated. The patient had a knot in his heart. If he could not untie it, he would continue to live in a state of injury to punish himself or to avoid something. While Gu Jiao was thinking, Xiao Lulang had already pulled down his trousers and walked out with his crutches. Gu Jiao looked at his cold and lonely back and couldn't help but be puzzled. What exactly had he experienced? The news that Xiao Lulang had passed the county-level exam quickly spread throughout the surrounding villages. As a big family in the village, the Gu family had also heard the news. They really did not expect that Xiao Lulang would be able to pass 2 exams in a row and even pass the exam. He was clearly a bad student who almost failed to get into Qianxiang Academy. How did he pass the exam like Deshan? Also, Xiao Lulang was clearly more valuable than Gu Dashuan's rice. Otherwise, the rice given to Xiao Lulang would not be so much better than the rice given to Gu Dasan. 2 exams, just 1 more to become a junior 3rd scholar. At the dinner table, Gu Changlu said enviously, "Was he born unwilling to study? No, it was just that he could not study. Later on, he had 2 sons and hoped that they could study. However, the family could not afford to support those who were willing to study. The one who entered for free was Gu Xiaoshan. That disappointment. The Gu family did not know that it was not that Xiao Lulang could not pass the exam, but that he had given up on it. Everyone at the table had ugly expressions. The ugliest was Gu Dashan. The Xiao Lulang that he had always looked down on had suddenly overtaken him. Gu Dashan was unhappy. With Headmaster Li personally tutoring him, of course he improved a lot. In the month before the district exam, I saw Headmaster Li call him to Zhongzhengtang every day. He did not believe that Xiao Lulang had relied on his own abilities to soar. In terms of talent, Xiao Lulang was not as good as him. If he was the one being personally tutored by Headmaster Li, then he would definitely be able to achieve better results than Xiao Lulang. To put it bluntly, he lost in terms of resources. If it was in the past, the Gu family would definitely say a few words of jealousy towards Xiao Lulang. But tonight, no one said a word. This caused Gu Dashan to frown slightly. He felt that the atmosphere in the family was different from before. Everyone looked like they had a lot on their minds, except for Gu Xiaoshan. It was not strange that he would think this way. After the Gu family failed in their attempt to woo the Marquis's daughter, Gu Jiao's matter was completely exposed. Marquis Gu did not even need to use any interrogation methods. He only needed to let Huang Zhong walk around the village, and he was able to get a clear picture of Gu Jiao's life since she was young. This was the legitimate bloodline of the Marquis's household. How could she be bullied like this? Wasn't this rubbing Marquis Gu's face on the ground? Marquis Gu's anger could be imagined. If not for Gu Jinyu and the third branch of the Gu family, Marquis Gu would have long captured this family and beaten them to death. But they could avoid the death penalty, but they could not escape punishment. Old Master Gu had reached the end of his career. This was the most wronged Old Master Gu had ever been. He had gone to the clan for a drink, and when he came back, his custody was gone. And it was his own wife, son, and daughter-in-law who had caused it to be gone. As for Gu Jinyu, Marquis Gu made the Gu family give up Gu Jinyu's custody and vowed not to appear in front of Gu Jinyu for the rest of his life. In addition, Marquis Gu's lips were sealed. Not a single word was to be leaked. So the Gu family kept it a secret even from Gu Dashun and Gu Xiaoshan. Gu Ershun had unintentionally eavesdropped and knew that Gu Jiao might have been the wrong child. But he did not know anything else. This was one of the reasons for the strange atmosphere. The second reason was that the womenfolk in the family had actually come to the table to eat. Gu Dashun was not used to this. Gu Dashun glanced at his sister, Gu Yue. He thought of something and said, Jianyang is so lucky to have married a scholar husband. His sister was not young anymore. Logically speaking, it was time to talk about marriage. If she married into a good family, it would be of help to him. Gu Yue lowered her head and ate without a word. Everyone thought, was Jianyang the lucky one? It was clearly that brat Xiao Lulang. Did he know who he was marrying? The Marquis's family's daughter. This was really a good thing that fell from the sky. Speaking of this marriage, they had been careless. If they had known that the girl had such a background, they would not have married her off. The first sentence made people frown, but the second sentence made the Gu family feel that there was hope. Gu Zhanghai quickly said to Madame Zhou, "Go and get them." Madame Zhou did not dare to delay. She went into the house and caught the expensive tea leaves and the two fattest hens in the house. Gu Xiaoshan put down his chopsticks, took the things, and walked out. Gu Zhanghai stretched out his hand and said, "Hey, wait for me. Wait for you. You are the ones who owe my sister." Gu Xiaoshan sprinted out and slipped into his sister's house, slamming the door shut with a loud bang. Gu Zhanghai, who had a nosebleed from the slamming of the door. The tea leaves and hens that Gu Zhanghai had spent a lot of money on were gone just like that. He did not dare to make a fuss. How could he reason with them? Gu Zhanghai wanted to knock on the door, but no one answered. He could only grit his teeth and go back. Gu Jiao did not care about the Gu family. The old madam and Xiao Lulang did not care either. If Gu Xiaoshan had not held the door shut, the old madam would have pinned a basin of feces and urine on the Gu family. Gu Jiao was cooking in the kitchen. Sister. Gu Xiaoshan had not returned to the village for a long time and missed his sister. He rushed to the kitchen to greet Gu Jiao, then went to look for Xiao Lulang and the old madam. Xiao Lulang gave him the carving knives that he had brought from Pingcheng. Gu Xiaoshan liked them very much. He looked at each knife again and could not bear to part with them. A good knife was to a craftsman, and a good sword was to a swordsman. That kind of joy could not be replaced by ordinary gifts. Gu Xiaoshan felt that his brother-in-law was a good man. Gu Xiaoshan was playing with the knives when the old madam suddenly called him into the house. The old madam waved at him enthusiastically. "Xiaoshan, come and try the candied dried red bayberries that Lu Lang bought for me." Gu Xiaoshan blinked. "Great aunt, why are you so generous today?" It was usually harder to eat one of her candied fruits than to reach the sky. "Here." The old madam searched for a long time and gave him the smallest one. Gu Xiaoshan did not pick it and stuffed it into his mouth. The next second, he saw the old madam count 7 big candied red bayberries and put them into her small honey pot. She shouted loudly, "Jiao Jiao, Xiaoshun ate 8 of my dried red bayberries." Gu Xiaoshun almost choked to death. Did she have to do this for a few dried red bayberries? Gu Jiao controlled the old madam and allowed her to eat 3 bayberries a day at most. She could only eat 5 bayberries during the new year. She saved 7 in one go. It could be said that she had made a fortune. The old madam was very satisfied. She waved her hand and asked Gu Xiaoshun to do what he should do. Gu Xiaoshun was dumbfounded. Did she make use of him just like that? Gu Xiaoshun planned to look for little Jing Kong, but he found that the little guy had gone out. Little Jing Kong went out to walk the chicks. At first, he only walked in the backyard of his house. Gradually, he felt that the backyard was not safe enough, so he took the chicks out. Little Jing Kong's route was from his house to the entrance of the village and back. If he met the villagers, he would politely greet them. The villagers were surprised at the beginning, but now they were used to it. They even started to like the little monk. Other people's chicks ran all over the place when they went out, but his chicks could still form a formation. Little Chi, don't cut the line. Little Jing Kong caught a chick that had sneaked to the 5th line. Little Jing Kong walked to the Gu family's old house. This was the only way to the entrance of the village. He knew the relationship between the two families. He would not go to the Gu family's house, nor would he greet the Gu family. However, today he was attracted by a strange sound. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/896429score89642826/115719606. HTML Genius. Memorize the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 87. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more interesting content. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. It sounded like a man's reading voice. It was intermittent. Every time he reached the same place, he would stop and start from the beginning. Little Jing Kong's OCD couldn't take it anymore. He walked over and saw Gu Dashun frowning under a big tree outside the Gu family's house. Little Jing Kong knew Gu Dashun, but he didn't talk to Gu Dashun before. He didn't understand why Gu Dashun didn't study at home, but came to read under a tree. The family was quarreling over the tea leaves and hens. The second branch blamed the first branch for coming up with a bad idea. The first branch blamed Gu Xiaoshun for messing things up. Gu Dashun couldn't concentrate, so he came to the tree to find some peace and quiet. He didn't expect to find some words that he didn't know. Hide. This word is red. Hide. Little Jing Kong stood behind him and said while looking at the words in his book. Gu Dashun was shocked by the sudden childish voice. He turned around and looked at Little Jing Kong in surprise. Little Jing Kong had been in the village for so long. He had heard of him and seen him from afar, but he didn't communicate with him. Little Jing Kong saw him in a daze and thought that he didn't understand. So he read again, hide, hide. Gu Dashun didn't believe a 3-year-old kid. He looked away and said, don't talk nonsense if you don't understand. Little Jing Kong put his hands on his hips and said, I'm not talking nonsense. I've learned it before. Gu Dashun said, how could you have learned it before? Little Jing Kong said, I've memorized Vajrasakyamuna mantra a long time ago. Gu Dashun looked at him suspiciously and pointed at another word. What about this one? Ah, the Buddhas of the 3 eras obtained Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi through Prajna Paramitha. Prajna Paramitha Heart Sutra. His little mouth opened and closed, saying it all in one breath, so smoothly that there was not even a small pause. Even if Gu Das-hun did not understand Buddhist scriptures, he knew that such a difficult sentence could not have been made up by a 3.5-year-old child. So he really knew how to do it. After that, Gu Das-hun pointed out a few words to little Jing Kong. There were words that he knew, and there were also words that he did not know. He did not expect that little Jing Kong knew all of them, and could even accurately tell where they came from. Little Jing Kong looked at Gu Das-hun bitterly. "How did you study? I heard that you are an elementary scholar. Are all elementary scholars so bad?" Little Jing Kong suddenly remembered that his bad brother-in-law had also just passed the Shotsi exam. Could he be as bad as him? How was he going to support his family? Could it support him until he grew up? Little Jing Kong, who was worried about his family, suddenly lost the mood to walk the chicks. He brought little one to little Chi back home. After putting the chicks back into the coop, he immediately went to the west room. He was still not good at writing, mainly because he was not strong enough to hold a writing brush. But he had scriptures. He took out a few scriptures from his small box and went to Xiao Lulang. He casually turned to a page and pointed at a rare word on it. "How do you read this?" Xiao Lulang glanced at him and read it out calmly. Little Jing Kong frowned seriously and nodded secretly. He read it correctly. Little Jing Kong pointed at another word, which was the first word that Gu Das-hun did not know. Xiao Lulang read it out easily. Little Jing Kong was satisfied. After that, he continued to test Xiao Lulang on many words. Xiao Lulang got every word right. He also tested Xiao Liulang's interpretation. Xiao Liulang's explanation was similar to his master's, or even more concise than his master's. It seemed that his bad brother-in-law was studying hard. Little Jing Kong was finally relieved. How could Xiao Lulang know what he was thinking? He thought that he suddenly wanted to learn how to read. The children in town began their education at the age of 7. Little Jing Kong was smarter than the average child and had some foundation in the temple. Perhaps he could be sent to the elementary school earlier. Xiao Lulang secretly engraved the matter of little Jing Kong's opening of the door in his mind. On the other hand, Marquis Gu's injury was basically healed. He did not say that he was kicked by his own daughter and only said that he fell accidentally. The servants were forced to believe him. Huang Zhong received a letter from his family from the capital. After reading the letter, Marquis Gu's brows furrowed tightly. Huang Zhong asked, "What's wrong, Marquis? Did something happen in the Marquis's household?" Marquis Gu sighed. "The Marquis's household is fine. It's a letter from Consort Chu." Huang Zhong was puzzled. "Consort Chu? Did she summon you for something?" Marquis Gu helplessly folded the letter and sealed it. "Her birthday is coming soon. Jinyu's birthday is in the same month as hers. She asked me when I would bring Jinyu back to the capital. This year is Jinyu's coming-of-age ceremony. She asked me not to forget." Huang Zhong sighed. "Yes, in the blink of an eye, Mrs. turning 15. Marquis Gu said, "There's still half a year left." The twins' birthday was in October. Huang Zhong smiled. Imperial concubine Shu must be thinking about Mississippi. Consort Shu was Marquis Gu's biological sister and had a good relationship with the former Marquis. She was not very close to Yao Shi, the second wife. She was also indifferent to Gu Yan. Only Gu Jinyu had won her favor with his talent. Marquis Gu had a headache. He could not return to the capital now. Even if he did, he had to bring Yao Shi and Gu Yan along. After all, it was Jinyu's coming-of-age ceremony. How could he not have his biological mother by his side? Moreover, he saw that Gu Yan's condition had improved greatly and he could return to the capital with him. Then what about Miss? Huang Zhong was referring to Gu Jiao. Of course, she'll be brought along. Marquis Gu said, "So decisive? Are you asking for trouble?" Huang Zhong was stunned. "You're not going to do the blood test?" Marquis Gu exploded. "You have to be able to get it first." "You're going to get it?" Huang Zhong shrunk his neck. "This subordinate doesn't dare." Marquis Gu frowned. "Yan is so close to her. There can't be a mistake. As for the catalyst, Rejuvenation Hall's medicine is temporarily effective. There's no harm in delaying the catalyst for a few days. But what? Huang Zhong asked. Marquis Gu pondered for a moment, then said, "That child grew up in the countryside and has bad habits. Her words and actions are not feminine at all. When she returns to the capital, she will be criticized. Before she returns, I have to find someone to teach her a lesson." Huang Zhong's eyes darted around. Did you skip a crucial step? For example, Miss herself might not be willing? Marquis Gu flicked his wide sleeves. Humph. Is there any room for her not to be willing? This Marquis is her father. Who cares if she believes me or not? If this Marquis really wants to take her away, can she rebel? Huang Zhong curled his lip. Then, who was it that Miss hung on the tree? Marquis Gu was not puffing himself up at his own cost. The person he was most worried about right now was not Gu Jiao, but Yao Shi. He did not know how to speak to Yao Shi in order to minimize the impact on Yao Shi. "Where's Madam?" Marquis Gu asked. Huang Zhong recalled. "I think she's in the peony garden outside the hot springs. This subordinate saw Madam when I passed by." Yao Shi was indeed in the peony garden. After Gu Jinyu's peonies had been destroyed, Marquis Gu had people quickly bring over a few more. He also built a new courtyard for Gu Jinyu to use as a peony garden. This could be considered compensation for the loss of Gu Jinyu's servant, Yu Ru. Gu Jinyu and Yao Shi sat in the center of the peony garden playing chess. "Mother, it's your turn." Yao Shi was lost in thought. Gu Jinyu waved his hand in front of her eyes. "Mother, mother." Yao Shi returned to her senses and smiled apologetically. "Is it Mother's turn? Mother will see how to move." Gu Jinyu took the chess piece she had just picked up and warmly said, "You've been playing for a long time. You must be tired. Why don't you rest for a while and eat something?" Yao Shi nodded and had the servant girls remove the chessboard. She brought over a plate of freshly cut fruits and a box of osmanthus cakes that she had personally made. Gu Jinyu ate some fruits and also took a small bite of the osmanthus cake. Yao Shi could tell that she did not really want to eat. The reason was that Jinyu's aunt, Consort Shu, had once said that eating too much desserts would make her fat. Ever since then, Jinyu had not touched sweet things. "Mother, your complexion has been good recently," Gu Jinyu said to Yao Shi with a smile. Yao Shi touched her cheek. Yes, after using Miss Gu's medicine, she felt much more relaxed. She could eat and sleep, and her mood was no longer so easily depressed. The only thing she could not understand was that she had been thinking about Miss Gu recently. She had been lost in thought just now. She should not have been so absent-minded when playing chess with her daughter. "Mother, wait a moment." Gu Jinyu put down the desserts in her hand and walked to a nearby room. She took a robe and draped it over Yao Shi. "The wind is strong. Be careful not to catch a cold." Her daughter was considerate, but Yao Shi did not deserve her daughter's consideration. No one knew that she had always had a secret in her heart. She had once hated Jinyu to the core. Ever since she gave birth, she had liked Gu Yan more than Jinyu. When she looked at the infant child, she always felt that she could not get close to him. When they were 3 years old, Gu Yan splashed a bowl of medicine on Jinyu. Jinyu was furious and rushed over to Gu Yan. She pushed Gu Yan to the ground and sat on Gu Yan's body. Gu Yan was pressed down so hard that he could not breathe. When she realized this, she walked over and roughly pulled Jinyu away, then gave her a slap. It was Gu Yan who had hit her first. It was normal for Jinyu to retaliate. Besides, they were only 3 years old. As a mother, she could have just separated the two children. There was no need to hit her. She still remembered Jinyu's shocked and hurt expression. Jinyu cried and called for her mother, but she did not feel sorry for her. Instead, she had an impulse to leave her behind. It had been so long since that incident. The two children had lost their memories of that time. She finally found her feelings for her daughter after interacting with them day after day. But every time she thought of this incident, she felt that she was not fit to be a mother. Everyone thought that her mental illness stemmed from her relationship with the Marquis and the public's criticism. But that was not the case. Every time she thought of how, as a mother, she did not love her own child and even thought of abandoning her child. She could not forgive herself. Jinyu was a perfect child. Even if she had hurt her in the past, she still respected her and was infinitely tolerant of her younger brother, who always bullied her. "Mother, why are you crying?" Jinyu noticed Yao Shi's tears. Yao Shi wiped her tears and smiled bitterly. "Do you feel that all these years, Mother has not treated you well enough?" Jinyu held Yao Shi's hand and solemnly said, "How could that be? Mother treats me very well, just like father and grandmother. You and younger brother are the people closest to daughter in the world. Daughter will love you all for the rest of her life." On the way back, Jinyu was called away by a servant. Another pot of peonies had arrived. She had to inspect the goods. Yao Shi walked back to her courtyard alone and did not let the servant girls follow her. When she passed by a fake mountain, Yao Shi heard the sound of an argument. "Do you not want to live anymore? How can you speak nonsense about this kind of thing? Be careful that someone hears and reports it to the Marquis and Madam. They will take your life." "Aunt, I am not speaking nonsense. I heard it with my own ears." Yao Shi recognized the two voices. One was Granny Fong from her courtyard, and the other was Granny Fong's niece, Cui Cui. Cui Cui was outside Marquis Gu's study, sweeping the floor. The sound of conversation continued, and Yao Shi stopped walking. "You must have misheard," Granny Fong scolded. Cui Cui loudly said, "I did not mishear. That is what the Marquis said. Our young miss was mistaken. She is not the Marquis and Madam's biological daughter." Yao Shi felt as if she had been hit in the head. She said in a daze, "What did you say? Who was mistaken?" "Madam?" Cui Cui and Granny Fong turned their heads and were both startled. Yao Shi walked in front of Cui Cui in a daze. "Say what you just said again. What mistaken? What is not your biological daughter?" Granny Fong quickly said, "Madam, don't listen to her nonsense." Yao Shi sternly shouted, "Shut your mouth." Yao Shi had a gentle personality, but even a rabbit would have a time when it was forced into a corner. Cui Cui lowered her head and stammered, Young miss was mistaken. She is not your and the Marquis daughter. The real young miss was wandering among the common people and grew up in a village. She was ugly and stupid and was often bullied. When the Marquis found her, Yao Shi did not hear the rest of the words. She only felt her vision go dark and the world spin. Then her eyes closed and she fell heavily to the ground. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that cannot be found online will be available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-2_89642826/115715966. HTML Genius will remember this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 88. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. In the study, Marquis Gu was hesitating on how to speak to Yao Shi when he heard a servant report that Yao Shi had fainted. Yao Shi had been recuperating and had been living in the small courtyard. She would only come to visit Gu Yan and Gu Jinyu every day. When Marquis Gu arrived at the small courtyard, Yao Shi had already been placed on the bed by Granny Fong and Cui Cui. Granny Fong had caught a cold in the past few days and was not present to serve. Granny Fong had taken care of the matters in the courtyard and had personally gone to invite the imperial physician. Marquis Gu looked at the unconscious Yao Shi and then at the shivering maidservants in the room. His face sank. Who served the madam today? The two maidservants fell to their knees. One of them cried, "This servant also does not know what happened when this servant returned to the courtyard. The madam had already fainted in her room." Marquis Gu sternly said, "How did you serve the madam? You actually let the madam stay in the courtyard alone?" The other maidservant also sobbed, "Marquis, please spare us. The madam usually does not like people following her. This servant did not dare to disobey. A group of useless people." While Marquis Gu was venting his anger, Granny Fong had brought the imperial physician over. The two were about to bow to Marquis Gu when he waved his hand. "No need, quickly treat the madam." "Yes." The imperial physician carried a medicine box and walked forward. He placed a silk handkerchief on Yao Shi's wrist and began to take her pulse. To be honest, the imperial physician was not optimistic about Yao Shi's condition. Yao Shi did not seem to have any serious illness, but her body had been exhausted long ago. She also had a mental illness and could not take any provocation. If it was serious, she could have hallucinations and go crazy, doing something irreversible. Marquis Gu was afraid of such a situation, so he had been hesitant to tell the truth. The imperial physician took her pulse for a long time this time, so long that Marquis Gu broke out in a cold sweat. "How is it, imperial physician Chen?" he anxiously asked. Granny Fong also looked nervously at imperial physician Chen. Imperial physician Chen furrowed his brows thoughtfully and took Yao Shi's pulse again. "Strange, very strange." Marquis Gu hurriedly said, "What's so strange about it? Is madam's condition serious?" Imperial physician Chen shook his head. "It's not serious. Yao Shi's body had always been very weak, and she could not be stimulated. Normally, when she fainted, it would be very dangerous. However, Yao Shi's pulse was steadier than expected. That was why he felt strange." "What medicine has madam been taking recently?" the imperial physician asked. Marquis Gu looked at Nanny Fong. Granny Fong was stunned and said, "Isn't it the medicine that you prescribed?" Imperial physician Chen said, "Take it away and let me have a look." Granny Fong arrived in front of the dressing table and opened Yao Shi's medicine box. She took out the small bottles and jars of medicine that Yao Shi had been taking every day and handed them to the imperial physician. The small medicine bottle was filled with white pills, colorless and odorless. Imperial physician Chen had never seen this kind of medicine before. Inside the medicine jar were small bottles of granules. Imperial physician Chen had never seen this kind of medicine before, but he could smell the familiar scent of traditional Chinese medicine. He could vaguely make out the scent of ginseng, jujube, porya-cocos, cinnamon, asparagus, and ripe rehmannia. "Medicine can be made like this?" Imperial physician Chen muttered. He had only seen medicine made into pills, but had never seen medicine made into tablets or granules. Especially those white pills. He could not identify the ingredients at all. "Where did these medicines come from?" Imperial physician Chen asked. Granny Fong looked at Imperial physician Chen in shock. "Didn't you prescribe them?" Imperial physician Chen said, "I have never prescribed these medicines." Marquis Gu's cold gaze fell on Granny Fong. "When did madam start taking these medicines?" Granny Fong hurriedly explained. "As for the specifics, this servant can't remember. It's been a while. Madam had never been willing to take medicine properly before. When she suddenly started taking them, this servant thought that madam had finally listened to imperial physician Chen's advice." "Was it these medicines that caused madam to faint?" Marquis Gu asked imperial physician Chen. Imperial physician Chen said in a low voice, "It's hard to say. The calming medicine in the medicine jar should not cause any harm to the body. As for the other type of medicine, I have never seen it before, so I don't dare to say anything." Marquis Gu looked coldly at Granny Fong. "Who gave these things to madam?" Granny Fong said with a pale face. This servant is also not sure. Although this servant serves madam, Granny Fong serves madam the most. Granny Fong had gone to recuperate and was not in the mountain villa. Marquis Gu clenched his fists and said, "Send someone to call Granny Fong here." Imperial physician Chen thought for a moment and said, "Marquis, don't worry. Madam's pulse is better than before. Perhaps these two medicines are harmless to madam." Marquis, Gu said coldly. Then how do you explain Madame's sudden coma? This. Imperial physician Qin could not explain. Madame should wake up soon. We will know the truth when we ask her later. Granny Fong lowered her head and clenched her fists. Imperial physician Qin wrote a prescription, and Granny Fong took the prescription to the Mountain Villa's pharmacy to get the medicine. When she was boiling the medicine in the small kitchen, Tsui sneaked in from the back door. Aunt. Granny Fong looked outside vigilantly, closed the door, and said to her, "Why are you here?" Tsui whispered. Huang Zhong suddenly went to see Granny Fong. Did something happen? Granny Fong narrowed her eyes and said, Madam has been taking medicine recently and has recovered from her illness. Tsue's beautiful face turned pale. What? Didn't you say that, with a little stimulation, she will? Madame Yao had been stimulated before. At that time, Madame Yao's illness was not so serious, but she almost couldn't be saved. She thought that this time it would be foolproof, but who would have thought? Consort Chu's letter has arrived. She asked Marquis Gu to bring Miss back to the capital for her hairpin ceremony. Little Gongzi's illness has improved. Marquis Gu will definitely bring Madame and little Gongzi back. As Granny Fong spoke, her cold eyes fell on the steaming medicine pot. Huang Zhong went to Granny Fong's house and brought the sick Granny Fong back to the mountain villa. Marquis Gu personally went to the study to interrogate her. Only the two maidservants on duty were left in the room. Granny Fong brought in a steaming bowl of medicine and said to the two, Okay, I'll keep watch here. Go to the kitchen and see if the madam's porridge is ready. Also, don't forget to send the fruits that Miss wanted to Lanting Pavilion. Yes. The two maidservants answered and left. Without a third person in the room, the silence was somewhat frightening. Granny Fong held the bowl of medicine and walked step by step to the bed. She looked down at Madame Yao, who was sleeping peacefully, and said disdainfully, Madam, don't blame this servant. If you want to blame someone for not wanting you to return to the manor. Granny Fong pried open Madame Yao's chin and poured the medicine into her mouth spoonful by spoonful. Today was the day of Hui Chun Hall's follow-up examination for Gu Yan. The second boss had something to do and didn't come. Instead, Gu Jiao and the old doctor came. The two were directly brought to Gu Yan's courtyard by Yu Ya. Gu Yan's current condition was very stable. As long as he continued to take medicine, it wouldn't be a problem for him to live for another 2 or 3 years. The little dog's injuries had also recovered. It still remembered Gu Jiao and ran over to Gu Jiao with its short legs. In the end, it fell and whimpered. Gu Jiao thought of little Jing Kong, who always wrestled. The doghouse from last time was broken. Let's make another one. Gu Yan said without changing his expression. Gu Jiao made a strange sound. The house she made was very sturdy. How could it be broken? The servants all lowered their heads and pretended not to know that the young master had broken down the doghouse in the middle of the night. Okay then. Gu Jiao agreed. Making another one was no big deal. Gu Jiao stayed at Gu Yan's place for 2 hours. After finishing the new doghouse, she got up and left. After leaving the villa, she went to visit old Madame Li as usual. When she visited old Madame Li, she saw the mulberry tree and couldn't help but think of Yao Shi. She planned to see if Yao Shi's condition had improved. However, Gu Jiao went over and knocked on the door for a long time, but no one answered. Perhaps they weren't there. Or perhaps they couldn't leave because of other matters. Gu Jiao decided to come again next time. But the moment she turned around, her ears twitched and she heard an extremely painful groan. That sound was soft and far away. Normal people definitely wouldn't be able to hear it. However, Gu Jiao's training in her previous life included a listening skill. She had to be prepared to recognize the other person's breathing under the interference of hundreds of different sounds. After changing into this small body, her body was far weaker than in her previous life, but it was gradually recovering. The sound was the Marchioness's. Gu Jiao was certain of this. Gu Jiao didn't care if the door was closed or not. She took a few steps back and jumped over the wall. When Gu Jiao arrived at Yao Shi's room, there was only Yao Shi left inside. Yao Shi was lying unconscious on the bed. Her face was green and her forehead was dark. Her breathing was very weak. The room was filled with the smell of Chinese medicine, but there was no medicine bowl. Gu Jiao found a few drops of medicine that had not dried up by Yao Shi's pillow. She leaned over and sniffed. It was aconite. Aconite was a Chinese medicine that was used to relieve pain and cold, but it was poisonous. It was not easily used. Yao Shi's body was cold, so she could not touch aconite. Gu Jiao was not certain how much Yao Shi had drunk, but she had to spit it out as soon as possible. Gu Jiao pondered for 3 seconds and immediately opened the small medicine box. She took out a special infusion tube and slowly inserted it into Yao Shi's stomach through her nose. This kind of infusion tube was specially prepared for the fugitives in the organization. It was harder than normal infusion tubes and could be used to kill people. Gu Jiao did not think that she would use it to save someone. Gu Jiao took out a bottle of sodium chloride and connected it to the other end of the tube. She held the bag and quickly poured the infusion into Yao Shi's stomach. The first bag was quickly finished. Just as Gu Jiao was about to pour the second bag, the 2 young maidservants who had been sent away by Nurse Fang returned to the room. The 2 did not recognize Gu Jiao and were immediately shocked by the scene in front of them. "Who are you? What are you doing to Madam?" The 2 of them came back to their senses and pounced toward Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao could not be interrupted by them. She kicked a stool and knocked the 2 to the ground. "Maidservant A, Maidservant B, someone come. Someone wants to murder Madam." Outside the room, Nurse Fang's hands trembled. "It can't be? She found out so quickly?" Marquis Gu had just finished interrogating Nurse Fang when he heard the maidservant's cries. He quickly rushed to Madame Yao's room and saw Gu Jiao pouring something strange into Madame Yao's nose. When he left, Madame Yao's complexion was still normal, but now it was blue and black, as if she had been poisoned. This girl, could it be that she was trying to poison her own mother? Marquis Gu was burning with anger and walked over with a murderous look. "Stop." Gu Jiao ignored him and increased the pressure of the infusion. Marquis Gu saw that not only did she not listen, but she also increased the pressure. He was so angry that he pulled out the whip at his waist and fiercely whipped Gu Jiao's thin and small back. With a crack, the whip landed on Gu Jiao's back. This was not an ordinary whip. It was a military whip used for executions. Gu Jiao still did not let go of Madame Yao. Marquis Gu angrily gritted his teeth and reached out to grab Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao looked over with a cold gaze. "If you don't want her to die, then get out of my way." Marquis Gu was shocked by her murderous gaze. The last drop of infusion was poured in. Gu Jiao pulled out the infusion tube and helped Madame Yao up. She pried open Madame Yao's mouth and used her finger to check her throat. In the next second, Madame Yao's body trembled, and she spat out the medicine and the infusion. After spitting it out, Madame Yao's complexion was no longer blue, and she could breathe with some strength. At the same time, Imperial Physician Chen also arrived. He had just gone to give the Marquis Madam a pill. Why did it seem like the Marquis Madam had died in just a short while? Isn't this the little medicine boy from Rejuvenation Hall? He recognized Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao did not speak. She calmly stood up and put away her small medicine box. Imperial Physician Chen finished checking Madame Yao's pulse and frowned. How did Madame get poisoned by aconite? Marquis Gu frowned. Imperial Physician Chen looked at Gu Jiao and then looked at the medicine on the ground. He could more or less guess what had happened. Fortunately, Marquis had this little medicine boy help Madame vomit. Otherwise, Madame Yao would have lost her life. I really did not think that a little medicine boy from Rejuvenation Hall would be so powerful. Marquis Gu did not hear the rest of the words. His mind was filled with the whip he had just given her. He did not say that he had used 100% of his strength, but he had used at least 80%. Stubborn girl, can't you speak properly? Must you take the whip? Marquis Gu would never admit that he had hit her wrongly. It was clearly because she did not explain herself that he had misunderstood. But why did he feel a little unconfident? Marquis Gu looked at Gu Jiao with a guilty conscience. He was about to say something, but Gu Jiao had already carried the small medicine box and left with an expressionless face. The wind of late spring was very warm, but her back was cold. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/8964/2_896/115685803. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhpqg.com Biku Mobile Reading Website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 89. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. Marquis Gu began to order a thorough investigation of Madame Yao's poisoning. According to the 2 servant girls, the medicine was brewed by Granny Fong and was also sent by Granny Fong. The 2 of them were sent by Granny Fong to deliver something to Gu Jinyu. What happened after that was unclear. Call Granny Fong over. Marquis Gu ordered coldly. After a while, a servant came to report. Marquis, Granny Fong is missing. Marquis Gu's large palm suddenly clenched into a fist. Very quickly, he remembered that Granny Fong still had a niece-in-law in the manor. Where is that servant girl called Chui Chui? Bring her to this marquis. Yes. The servant accepted the order and left. Granny Fong did not take Chui Chui away in order to not attract attention. When Chui Chui realized that something was wrong, she hurriedly packed her bag and left. Unfortunately, she was 1 step too late and was caught by the manor's guards. When she was brought to Marquis Gu, she found out that Madame Yao had been poisoned. It was easy to guess who the person who poisoned her was. It was Granny Fong. Chui Chui fell to her knees and trembled. Marquis, please spare me. It wasn't me. I don't know anything. I'm innocent. Marquis Gu said, innocent? Then let me ask you, how did Madame faint? Chui Chui stammered. It's Marquis Gu said sarcastically. Good. There's no use keeping this tongue. It's better to pull it out. Chui Chui's body trembled. I'll tell you. I'll tell you everything. It was Granny Fong. Granny Fong made me do it. She made me tell Madame what I overheard on purpose. Marquis Gu's heart tightened. What did you say? Chui Chui said fearfully. I said, Miss is not her biological child. She was swapped, bastard. Marquis Gu was so angry that he smashed the teacup beside him. Chui Chui's entire body was crawling on the broken pieces of the teacup. Her hands were bleeding, but she did not dare to move an inch. Master, please spare my life. It was Mama Fong who forced me. Marquis Gu was worried that this would happen, so he never dared to tell Yao Shi the truth. He would rather not acknowledge that child for the rest of his life than have anything happen to Yao Shi. However, he had been careful and had allowed the 2 lowly maids to reveal the truth. He said sternly, Madam treated her well. Why would she do that? Chui Chui sobbed. I don't know. Auntie. No. It was Granny Fong. She ordered me to do things. She never allowed me to ask for the reason. I don't know why she wanted to frame Madam. If I didn't listen to her, she would let her nephew beat me to death. Marquis, please judge clearly. This servant is telling the truth. Ah. You listen to her more than you listen to this Marquis and Madam. What? Her words are imperial edicts? At this point, how could Marquis Gu not see that Chui Chui's words were half true and half false? It was true that Granny Fong had ordered her, but her wild ambition was even more true. If she did not covet the benefits that Granny Fong had promised her, Why would she work for Granny Fong? It seemed that she would not be able to get anything out of her. Marquis Gu waved his hand in disgust. Drag her out and beat her to death. Marquis, please spare my life. Marquis, please spare. The guards did not give her a chance to beat around the bush. They directly used a rag to gag her mouth and dragged her out to be executed. The guards of the villa split into 4 groups to catch Granny Fong. When the sky turned dark, they finally found Granny Fong's tracks. Unfortunately, Granny Fong had already hanged herself on a tree. Dead? In the study, Marquis Gu's face turned cold. Huang Zhong was a martial artist. He was not smart when it came to fighting and scheming. However, when it came to examining corpses, he had stayed in piles of corpses before and had seen countless deaths. How could he not see that Granny Fong had been hung on a tree after she had breathed her last? Marquis Gu's expression was grave. So, she had someone kill her to silence her? Huang Zhong did not dare to say that she had been killed, but he was sure that Granny Fong was killed by him. Marquis Gu was silent for a long time. This Marquis knows. These days, strengthen the villa's security. Other than Granny Fong, everyone else is dismissed. Yes. Marquis Gu went to Madame Yao's room. Granny Fong, who was sick, was guarding the room. Her complexion was not very good. Marquis Gu said to her, "Go and rest. You don't have to come over tonight." Granny Fong did not immediately leave. Instead, she paused and boldly asked, "Marquis, must you bring Madame back to the capital?" "What's wrong?" Marquis Gu asked. Granny Fong said earnestly, "This servant knows that the Marquis's estate dotes on Madame. However, I'm afraid that other than Marquis, no one in the entire estate would welcome Madame back." Marquis Gu clenched his fists. "She is this Marquis's wife. This Marquis will protect her. You don't have to worry." Marquis Gu's eyes were like torches. "This Marquis will not let anything happen to her again." Granny Fong did not refute and bowed to Marquis Gu. "This servant will leave now." Marquis Gu blocked the news of Madame Yao's courtyard and did not let Gu Yan and Gu Jinyu know. 2 hours later, Madame Yao slowly woke up. Marquis Gu sat by the bed and held her hand. He asked softly, "You're awake? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Madame Yao weakly shook her head and looked at him. "Where's my child? Where is my child?" At this point, Marquis Gu had nothing to hide. He held her hand tightly and took a deep breath. "She came by just now. She's right here." Madame Yao became agitated again. Marquis Gu was afraid that she would faint again, so he quickly held her shoulders and said, "Don't be agitated. Let me finish. She's fine. I've already found her. When you recover, I'll take you to see her." Madame Yao said, without hesitation, "I'm fine." Marquis Gu said, I know. It's just that it's too late today. If you go over, you'll just disturb her rest. Tomorrow morning, I promise you." Only then did Madame Yao lie back down. She looked at him in confusion. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Marquis Gu was silent. Madame Yao frowned. "Is it that you don't want to acknowledge that child?" Marquis Gu was so frightened by her that his little heart trembled. His strong desire to live made him decide between telling the truth and lying. "There's no such thing. Don't think too much. She's my flesh and blood. How could I not want to acknowledge her? It's just, I've already made a mistake once. I don't want to make the same mistake a second time." Marquis Gu told Madame Yao about the medicine. "I wanted to wait until I got her blood and merged it with Yen Er's before telling you. However, Yen Er gets along very well with her. I think that if they weren't connected by blood, Yen Er would not like her so much." Madame Yao's expression froze. "Yen Er has also seen her?" Marquis Gu slowly nodded. "Yes, she's the little medicine boy from the Return of Spring Hall. Is there a portrait of her?" Madame Yao was impatient to see her daughter's appearance. Marquis Gu hesitated. I'm begging you, Marquis." This was the first time Madame Yao had begged him. For the sake of a stinky girl's portrait, Marquis Gu felt very uncomfortable. However, Marquis Gu still forced himself to draw it. It seemed that he could never refuse Madame Yao. However, when Madame Yao excitedly opened the scroll, her smile froze. "What are you drawing?" "Circles, crosses, 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 crosses." Was this neither round nor square pancake a face? Were the two asymmetrical green beans eyes? Were her nostrils pointed to the sky? Also, her mouth was crooked. Marquis Gu awkwardly coughed and said in a serious tone, "It's because she's ugly." He would never admit that his drawing was ugly. The talented Marquis Gu always had a secret that no one knew. That was his calligraphy and drawing skills were terrible. Outsiders only knew that Marquis Gu's calligraphy could not be obtained, but they did not know that he did not dare let anyone see it. "You're the ugly one." Madame Yao threw the painting back into his arms and lifted the blanket to get out of bed. Marquis Gu immediately guessed what she wanted to do and calmly said, "Are you going to find Yen or to ask for a portrait?" He. His drawing is not as good as mine." Madame Yao, who really wanted to beat him to death. In the end, Madame Yao managed to obtain her daughter's portrait. It was drawn by Gu Jinyu. Marquis Gu did not tell Gu Jinyu the truth, and only had her draw the appearance of the little medicine boy. Gu Jinyu's drawing skills were very good. Among the noble ladies in the capital, she was at least in the top 3. Marquis Gu brought the portrait to Madame Yao. When Madame Yao saw the little girl in the portrait, her expression froze. Currently, it was late at night. When Gu Jiao returned to the village, the sun had not yet set. Smoke rose from the chimneys in the village, and the smell of food filled the air. It was like the countryside. The Gu family had been very quiet recently. It was said that old Master Gu had lost his position as the village chief, and the Gu family's dozens of acres of farmland had been taken away. Those farmland had been allocated to the Gu family for planting. Although it was called farmland, the annual rent was only about 100 caddies. It was no different from giving it away for free. This was because they had benefited from old Master Gu and Gu Das Hun. But now it was all gone. The Gu family's days had become difficult. It was said that Gu Das Hun was about to be unable to pay his tuition fees. However, this had nothing to do with Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao could not be bothered with them. Gu Jiao's back was burning with pain. She did not pay too much attention to it and went to the kitchen to prepare dinner. Little Jing Kong squatted in the backyard to feed the chicks. Halfway through, he grabbed a little yellow chick and walked over. "Jiao Jiao, Jiao Jiao, little Chi doesn't eat. Is it sick?" "I already said that you don't know how to raise a chicken. See, you're going to raise it to death." It was Xiao Liulong's teasing voice. Little Jing Kong turned his head angrily, put his hands on his hips, and stomped his feet. "I didn't. Little Chi won't die. I'm raising it well." "Let me see." Gu Jiao reached out her hand. Little Jing Kong put little Chi in Gu Jiao's palm with grievance. He said those words confidently, but his eyes were a little red. It was obvious that this little guy was really worried that little Chi would die because of him. Gu Jiao touched little Chick's belly and smiled. "It's full. It can't eat any more." "Huh?" Little Jing Kong looked at little Chick with his big black eyes. He scratched his head and asked with a bitter face, "Little Chi, did you steal food again?" Little Chick, "Gee." Little Jing Kong took back little Chick, stuck out his tongue at his bad brother-in-law, and put little Chi back into the chicken coop. Xiao Lulang looked at him with amusement. Then his gaze fell on Gu Jiao's face. He found that her face was paler than usual. "Dinner is ready. Let's eat," Gu Jiao said. Xiao Lulang paused. "Okay." Gu Jiao did not have a good appetite during dinner. Little Jing Kong held the bowl and chopsticks and asked her, "Jiao Jiao, are you full too?" Xiao Lulang looked at her with a complicated expression. Old Mrs. Han also looked at her. Gu Xiaoshun also looked up and said in surprise, "Sister, why do you look so pale? Are you sick?" Little Jing Kong put down the bowl and chopsticks, got up and stood on the stool. "Nonsense. Jiao Jiao won't get sick." "I'm not sick." Indeed, she was not sick. She was probably injured. It was painful, but she was used to this kind of pain in her previous life, so she did not take it to heart. She had forgotten that this body had a weak foundation. so how could it withstand a single whip from a general? At night, Gu Jiao's condition worsened. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the dark night sky, illuminating the room. Little Jing Kong was lying on his small pillow on the bed, drooling as he slept. Xiao Lulang opened his eyes and looked in the direction of the door. He hesitated for a while, then sat up. He pulled up the quilt that little Jing Kong kicked over, then put on his clothes and went to Gu Jiao's room. Gu Jiao used to lock the door. Little Jing Kong woke up in the middle of the night with a nightmare. He came to her with a pillow, but could not open the door. He was so scared that he cried for a long time. After that, Gu Jiao did not lock the door. Xiao Lulang pushed open the unlocked door, and a faint smell of blood assaulted his nose. Xiao Lulang frowned, paused, and stepped into the room. Gu Jiao. He called her, but she did not respond. So he went to the bed. He reached out and touched Gu Jiao's forehead. It was burning hot. Another bolt of lightning flashed, illuminating the room as bright as day. Xiao Lulang saw Shui Yi on the chair. His face changed. He picked up the bloody clothes and found that they were underwear. The cheap material was not soft, but it had been worn on her delicate skin. It was covered by the smell of blood, and it exuded a faint fragrance of a young girl. Xiao Liulang's ears were red. He saw the location of the blood and confirmed that Gu Jiao was injured on her back. He took a deep breath and planned to turn Gu Jiao over and get a doctor. His hand was just about to touch Gu Jiao when it was caught by Gu Jiao's cold little hand. She said arrogantly, "Why aren't you sleeping in the middle of the night? Are you trying to take advantage of me?" Xiao Lulang was embarrassed and explained, "No, don't take up too much." Gu Jiao mumbled and fell asleep in a daze. So was she talking in her sleep? Xiao Liulang's breathing quickened and cold sweat seeped out. However, this was not the scariest thing. He turned his head casually, and another flash of lightning lit up the door, illuminating the old lady's gloomy figure. His hair stood on end. The old lady entered the room expressionlessly and put a bottle of medicine on Gu Jiao's table. Xiao Liulang's shirt was soaked. He couldn't tell if he was more afraid or guilty. After all, his hand was still on her chest. Although she was the one who pulled him over, it looked like he was the one who took the initiative. Great aunt, don't misunderstand. Aren't we a couple? What's there to misunderstand? The old lady put down the medicine and went out with a snort. Really, it was a dark and windy night. Hurry up and give her a little great-grandson. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642826/115685636. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 90. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. How could Xiao Lulang know what the old lady was thinking? He also didn't know where she got the medicine, but now wasn't the time to think about that. Gu Jiao's condition was very serious, so she had to be treated immediately. Although the two of them had slept in the same bed before, that was when their clothes were still intact. But now, he had to lift her clothes up. Xiao Lulang calmed himself down and gently turned her over so she could sleep on her stomach. His slender jade-like fingertips slightly trembled as he lifted her slightly warm underwear and slowly lifted it up a bit. The whip mark was very long and extended from her right waist all the way to her left shoulder. He had no choice but to lift up all her clothes, revealing her smooth back. Her hands were on the pillow, and her body was pressed into a beautiful shape unique to a young girl. In order to see her injury clearly, Xiao Lulang lit an oil lamp in the room, but Xiao Liulang's eyes inadvertently fell on a place where they shouldn't be. His breathing quickened as he quickly turned his face away, not daring to look around. After calming himself down again, he dipped his fingertips in the cool ointment and slowly applied it to the whip mark. She seemed to feel pain in her sleep, but she only slightly knit her brows. The whip mark was very fierce and didn't seem like it was made by a normal whip. She didn't seem like someone who would be bullied, at least not right now. Xiao Lulang couldn't help but wonder how she got this injury. Who did she offend? She didn't seem to care at all, as if she was used to it, which made him even more confused. Although she had a hard time growing up, it wasn't to the point where she was always beaten. Xiao Lulang was full of doubts as he finished applying the ointment and found a clean cloth to cover her wound. Then he pulled down her clothes and covered her with a blanket. After doing this, he planned to go back to the house, but the moment he stood up, he kicked something. There was a thud, as if a box had fallen to the ground. Then, the contents of the box rolled all over the ground. Xiao Lulang picked up the small wooden box and placed it on the table. He also picked up the items on the ground and placed them on the table one by one. Then he looked at the items piled up on the table and was a little confused. What are these things? Also, why are there so many? These strange things covered the entire table. How could a small, crappy box contain all of them? On the day that Gu Jiao fell into the water for the first time, he had come to Gu Jiao's house to look for something. He was very sure that she did not have this box at that time. First, it was the inexplicable injury. Then there was the strange box. How many secrets was she hiding? Xiao Lulang looked at the sleeping Gu Jiao with a complicated expression. He suddenly felt a little annoyed, but he couldn't tell what he was annoyed about. But he did not have the habit of investigating other people's privacy. He did not look at the medicine on the table and put them one by one back into the small box. After he finished, he was amazed. What kind of box was this? It was too good at storing things. This time, he really planned to go back to the house. But he didn't put the small box down properly, so it fell off the table with a thud. Once again, the things inside rolled out in a clatter. But what was surprising was that the things that fell out this time were different from before. Are my eyes playing tricks on me, or? Xiao Lulang looked at the medicine on the ground strangely. For the first time, he doubted his eyes. He put the things back and planned to knock the box over again to verify it. But suddenly, Gu Jiao turned over on the bed. She pressed on her wound and let out a cry of pain. Xiao Liulang's movements paused. He suddenly realized that it was not right for him to go through the box in the middle of the night. He sighed and put the box back on the table. He turned around and went back into the house. The next day, Xiao Lulang woke up early. Gu Jiao's fever had mostly subsided, but she was still sleeping because she was too tired. Xiao Lulang did not wake her up. He went to the kitchen to make breakfast and told the old madam about it. Then he went to the academy. In the villa, Madame Yao, who had been waiting for the whole night, could not wait to ask Marquis Gu to bring her to the village. Little Jing Kong opened the door. Usually, the village did not lock the door. But today, Gu Jiao was sleeping. In order to prevent anyone from disturbing her, Little Jing Kong locked the door. Little Jing Kong poked his round little head out from the crack of the door and looked curiously at Madame Yao and Marquis Gu at the door. He knew Madame Yao. She was the beautiful benefactress who always went to the temple to offer incense. He also knew Marquis Gu. He was the bad guy who ordered him and Jiao Jiao to be taken away. The two of them were together. Little Jing Kong thought seriously. He tilted his head and asked, "Benefactress, were you also taken away by him?" Madame Yao was puzzled. Marquis Gu was embarrassed. Last night, Madame Yao asked Marquis Gu to tell her a lot about Gu Jiao. But how could Marquis Gu dare to tell her everything? At least, he did not tell her that he ordered people to take away Gu Jiao and the little baby next to her. After that, he asked around and found out that the baby was adopted by Gu Jiao from the temple. She could not even raise herself, yet she got a little baby. He did not know what this girl was thinking. Madame Yao did not understand little Jing Kong's words. but she vaguely remembered that he was a little monk from the temple. She squatted down and looked at little Jing Kong gently. I remember you. You are the little master from the temple. What is your name? Little Jing Kong blinked his big black eyes and said cutely, My name is Jing Kong. I am not the little master anymore. I am going down the mountain. Madame Yao patted his little head and smiled gently. I am looking for Jiao Jiao. Is Jiao Jiao home? Little Jing Kong was surprised. Oh, you also know Jiao Jiao? Madame Yao nodded. Yes, I know her. Little Jing Kong lowered his little head and said sadly, You might not be able to see her today. She is sick and cannot see guests. Madame Yao immediately became worried. Why is she sick? Grand Aunt said that she is too tired. Little Jing Kong thought for a while and said self-reproachfully, She must be tired from taking care of me. After all, I eat so much. Marquis Gu felt a little guilty. That girl might have been injured by his whip yesterday, right? He did not dare to tell Madame Yao about this. Madame Yao looked pleadingly at little Jing Kong. Her tone was urgent, but her voice was very soft. Can you let me in to see her? I promise I will not disturb her. I am not sure if Jiao Jiao wants to see you. Wait, I will go and ask her. Little Jing Kong closed the door and ran into the room. He came to Gu Jiao's bed and asked very softly, Jiao Jiao, the benefactress from the temple came to see you. Do you want to see her? Gu Jiao was fast asleep. After a while, little Jing Kong opened the door and said to Madame Yao, Okay, Jiao Jiao did not object. You can go in. Madame Yao went into the room full of excitement. Marquis Gu also wanted to go in. Little Jing Kong reached out a small hand to stop him. You can't go in. Marquis Gu frowned. Why? Little Jing Kong raised his small chin. Jiao Jiao did not agree to let you in. Marquis Gu was confused. Was this a question of whether she agreed or not? It was more like this black-hearted little monk did not ask at all, right? Marquis Gu said seriously, If you have the ability, go and ask again. I don't believe that she will object. She was not awake yet. How could she object? Little Jing Kong thought for a while. Okay. Little Jing Kong ran into the room. Jiao 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 Jiao, the big bad guy wants to see you. Do you want to see him? What did he mean by the big bad guy? It was fine that the girl was infuriating. But was the little monk she raised also so infuriating? Marquis Gu's face turned black. Little Jing Kong grabbed Gu Jiao's hand and shook it. I know you don't agree. He walked out with his head held high and said sternly to Marquis Gu, Jiao Jiao has rejected you. Marquis Gu, in order to prevent someone from barging in, little Jing Kong moved a small stool and sat at the door, staring at Marquis Gu like a tiger watching its prey. Marquis Gu, what are you doing? Little Jing Kong, staring at you. Marquis Gu, Humph, I will not go in. Little Jing Kong, then who knows? Marquis Gu, if you don't believe me, then lock the door. Little Jing Kong sternly said, What if you climb over the wall? I will keep an eye on you to prevent you from doing anything bad. Marquis Gu, in any case, I am the Marquis of Ding and in the capital. Is my reputation so bad that I need a little monk to keep an eye on me? One big and one small, just like that. They stared at each other in front of the door. Yaosher could not care about her husband at this time. Her heart was already filled with Gu Jiao. After she entered the room, she directly sat down beside Gu Jiao's bed. Gu Jiao's complexion was much better than last night, but it was still sickly pale. As the saying goes, the illness is in the child's body, but the pain is in the mother's heart. Yaosher looked at her own child's illness, and her heart ached. Looking at the room she was staying in, Yaosher's eyes were red. Yaosher held her hand again. The calluses and wounds on her hand were so abrasive that Yaosher's palm hurt. Yaosher could no longer hold back and silently sobbed. The matriarch went back to sleep in the room. When she woke up, she planned to go see how Gu Jiao was doing. In the end, when she entered the room, she saw little Jing Kong sitting at the door like a small stone statue. He didn't go out? The matriarch was puzzled. Don't look at how little Jing Kong was only a 3-year-old child. He was actually very busy every day. He continued his habit of doing morning and evening classes at the temple. After he woke up, he would recite Buddhist scriptures in his heart. After he finished reciting, he would go to the small forest behind the house to practice. There was once when the matriarch came out and saw him use his hands to grab her legs and wrap her around a thick tree. The matriarch almost thought that she had seen a little snake demon. He only practiced the basics. Occasionally, Gu Jiao would practice with him. If there was no one to practice with him, he would practice on his own. He was the type that did not mix in anything. After he finished practicing, he would go find his friends in the village. At noon, he would come back to eat. In the afternoon, he would help Gu Jiao do some work. Right now, it was time for him to go to the village to cause trouble for his friends. Little Jing Kong replied, "Jiao Jiao is sick. I have to accompany Jiao Jiao." He did not allow anyone to disturb his schedule. Only Jiao Jiao could do that. This answer was not unexpected. The matriarch said, "Oh." Her gaze went past him and fell on the strange man at the door. "Who is this?" she asked indifferently. Little Jing Kong swallowed back the words "big bad guy" because he had promised Jiao Jiao that he would not tell his family that they were taken away. He did not want his great-aunt and bad brother-in-law to worry. "He's alone," Little Jing Kong said disdainfully. The matriarch thought, "How can I not recognize this person?" The matriarch did not think much of it and walked towards the door. At this moment, Marquis Gu also noticed the matriarch who was walking towards him. Marquis Gu was very clear about Gu Jiao's current situation. Not only did he know that she had adopted a little monk, but he also knew that she had a crippled husband and a great-aunt who came to seek refuge with them. Great-aunt was from the man's family. No, she was already so poor. Why did she keep bringing people into her family? Would she be able to get a grand secretary or an empress dowager? Didn't she know her own worth? Marquis Gu was furious when he thought of this. However, when the old lady got closer and he saw her face clearly, it wasn't that he didn't want to vent his anger, but that he couldn't breathe at all. "Madam, madam, madam, Empress Dowager?" Marquis Gu's knees went weak and he fell on the threshold, prostrating himself on the ground. The matriarch looked at the stranger who fell at her feet. She touched her chin and said, "There's no need for that." Little Jing Kong turned his head and said, "He's here to look for Jiao Jiao. The benefactress has already gone in. I'm here to guard and not let him in." There was nothing wrong with not letting a man into Jiao Jiao's house. The matriarch did not suspect him and did not bother to ask who Marquis Gu was. She yawned and went to the backyard to eat melon seeds. Marquis Gu held his head that almost fell off and got up. From his angle, he could clearly see the matriarch sitting on the bench outside the back door of the central room. She was wearing a country bumpkin's clothes and had an old village woman's headscarf wrapped around her head. Marquis Gu felt that she did not look like the Empress Dowager. Empress Dowager Zhuang married the late emperor at the age of 13. She was awarded the title of Virtuous Empress when she entered the palace. She commanded the harem for decades and held court for 17 years. Although she did not give birth to any children for the late emperor, she was the one who supported the current emperor to the throne. Her position in the harem and the court was unshakable. Ordinary people could not see Empress Dowager Zhuang. Marquis Gu was lucky enough to see her twice. The first time was at the palace banquet during the Hungry Ghost Festival. He only saw a figure from afar, but Empress Dowager Zhuang was so domineering that even the emperor next to her paled in comparison. The other time was when he went to the palace to visit the pregnant imperial concubine Shu. He bumped into Empress Dowager Zhuang's carriage. He retreated to the side and bowed to Empress Dowager Zhuang. He only dared to take a glance, but that sharp gaze almost made him breathless on the spot. Empress Dowager Zhuang was not a good person. Otherwise, she would not have been called the Poison Empress and the Demon Empress behind her back. The matriarch in front of him, other than her appearance, did not have the slightest bit of Empress Dowager Zhuang's aura. "Great aunt, are you secretly eating again?" Little Jing Kong suddenly realized that there was something wrong with the sound of the matriarch cracking the melon seeds. He turned around and saw that she had unknowingly picked up the jar of candied red bayberries. The matriarch decisively turned around and shook the back of Little Jing Kong's head. "Don't talk nonsense. Where would I have it?" As she spoke, she grabbed a handful and stuffed it into her purse. By the time Little Jing Kong came to collect the jar, she had already stolen a lot. Marquis Gu saw everything, and was even more certain that this person was a foodie and not the vicious Empress Dowager Zhuang. Inside the room, Gu Jiao slowly woke up. She could have woken up earlier, but in order to let her sleep peacefully, Yao Shi made a curtain at the last minute to cover the window. The dim light really made it easy to sleep, so Gu Jiao slept until noon. She opened her eyes and found someone sitting by the bed. Alarm bells suddenly went off in her heart. She pulled out the dagger under the pillow and put around the other person's neck. She put the tip of the dagger against the other person's neck and locked the other person in her arms. "Jiao Jiao, it's me," Yao Shi said. Gu Jiao heard the familiar voice and paused. The vigilance between her eyebrows disappeared. She took the dagger and let go of her. "Madame Gu." Just now, Yao Shi was so shocked that she broke out in a cold sweat. She turned around and calmed down. She reached out to touch Gu Jiao's forehead. "How do you feel?" Gu Jiao subconsciously turned her head to avoid her hand. Yao Shi's expression froze, and she said embarrassedly, "Did I scare you?" The light in the room was a bit dim. Gu Jiao did not see that her eyes were red and swollen, but she saw the blood on her neck. It was from when she was holding her hostage. She was in a high fever, so her strength was not as precise as usual. She had accidentally injured her. But her first reaction was not to notice her own injury. Instead, she paid attention to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao looked at her with a complicated expression. Yao Shi noticed Gu Jiao's gaze and used a handkerchief to cover the wound. She smiled and said, "I'm fine." "Jiao Jiao, how do you feel?" This was the second time she had asked. Gu Jiao thought for a bit before replying, "I'm also fine." "What is Madame Gu doing here?" "I came to see you," Yao Shi said as she walked to the window and pulled open the curtains. The strong light shined through the paper window. Gu Jiao slightly closed her eyes. After adjusting to the light, she said, "Madame Gu has just been poisoned. You should rest in bed." Yao Shi's gentle gaze fell on her small face. "I know. I came today because I have something to say to you." Gu Jiao looked at Yao Shi and suddenly found that there were tears in her eyes. Yao Shi stepped in front of her step by step and held her hand. She carefully looked at her thin face. Her body was very weak, but this time she had a lot of strength. "Jiao Jiao, I am your mother." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964/2_89642826/115650548. HTML Genius remembered this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 91. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. The novels that cannot be found online are all available here. Marquis Gu waited outside for a long time. He was about to fall asleep from waiting when Yao Shi finally came out. Yao Shi's face was full of tears. Her eyes were red and swollen. It seemed that she had cried quite hard. Marquis Gu strode forward and held her shoulder. "Wife." Yao Shi nodded and held back her tears. She turned to look at the matriarch in the backyard and bowed to her. "Elder, I'm leaving. Jiao Jiao, please take care of Jiao Jiao." Yao Shi had never entered the palace, so she naturally had not seen the matriarch. But before she came, she knew that Xiao Liulong's grand-aunt was at home. She treated Jiao Jiao very well. The matriarch looked at her strangely and did not speak. Yao Shi had Marquis Gu bring down the pastries that he had forgotten in the carriage and personally handed them to the matriarch. I made these pastries myself. I don't know if they are to your liking. Oh, the matriarch's expression improved. The moment Yao Shi turned around, the matriarch suddenly gave her an un. Yao Shi was stunned for a long time before she reacted. The matriarch was responding to what she had just said. Was it because she saw the pastries that she was willing to acknowledge her? But it seemed that she did not acknowledge her. It was just a tone of voice. Yao Shi made pastries for everyone in Gu Jiao's family. There were also pastries in Little Jingkong. After this, Yao Shi and Marquis Gu sat in the carriage to return to the manor. Marquis Gu could not wait to know what the mother and daughter talked about. What did that girl say? What did she say? Yao Shi recalled the scene after she had told the entire truth. Gu Jiao's reaction was very calm. At least, it was calmer than Yao Shi had imagined. It was as if what she had heard was not her past, but someone else's. Then she made a sound of confusion, and a trace of confusion flashed through her eyes. She was clearly in front of Yao Shi, but at that moment, Yao Shi felt that her daughter was very far away. From beginning to end, Gu Jiao only said one thing that confused Yao Shi. If you were a bit earlier, even if it was half a year earlier, how good it would have been. Yao Shi did not understand. The Gu family's Sanlang couple had passed away 9 years ago. His daughter had gotten married a year ago, and she had also separated from the Gu family a year ago. Why did he hope that they would arrive half a year earlier? Did something happen half a year ago that they don't know about? Was she hurt? Yao Shi left with this sort of feeling. On the other side, Xiao Lulang asked for half a day's leave from the academy and went to the Huichun Hall to get some herbs. On the way back to the village in second Uncle Luo's ox cart, he happened to pass by Marquis Gu's carriage. The curtain of the carriage was blown up by the wind. Marquis Gu took a casual glance and unexpectedly saw Xiao Lulang on the ox cart. He was so shocked that he stumbled again and hit his head on the wall of the car. The bump that had gone down with much difficulty started to bulge again. He rubbed his eyes and wanted to take another look, but the ox cart had already gone far away. He stuck his head out of the car window and looked back eagerly. "What are you looking at?" Yao Shi asked. Marquis Gu retracted his head. Nothing. What happened today? Did he not check the almanac before leaving the house? First, he met an old woman from the countryside who looked like the Empress Dowager. And then he ran into a poor scholar who looked like the young Marquis of Zhao. The Empress Dowager was recuperating in the temporary imperial residence, and the young Marquis of Zhao had passed away long ago. No one could appear here. Marquis Gu muttered to himself, "I've really seen a ghost." Xiao Lulang also saw Marquis Gu's carriage. He did not look through the window, so he did not know who was sitting inside. But he saw and noticed the horse's horseshoe. Those were not normal horseshoes. They were used by the Marquis of the capital. The carriage seemed to have come from the village. Xiao Liulong's first reaction was to find him, especially when the two carriages had already passed each other and were heading in opposite directions. The man in the carriage actually stuck his head out to look at him. Xiao Lulang did not turn his head. His gaze was cold as he said to Second Uncle Luo, "Second Uncle Luo, please hurry. Jianyang is sick." "Okay." Second Uncle Luo agreed. After Yao Shi and Marquis Gu left, Gu Jiao was in a daze in the room for a while. She remembered that unconstrained dream. It was actually real. She really was the flesh and blood of the Marquis Fu. Oh, then that means I misunderstood him that day. Marquis Gu said he was her old man, so he meant it literally. She had thought he was looking for a beating. That was not the main point. That guy was so hateful. If he was beaten, then he was beaten. The main point was that dream. In the dream, Yao Shi did not come to her door to acknowledge her. It was Marquis Gu himself. Yao Shi and Gu Yan did not appear from beginning to end. Based on Yao Shi and Marquis Gu's relationship, It was not likely that Yao Shi had been abandoned. Combining Yao Shi and Gu Yan's illness, Gu Jiao guessed that Gu Yan and Yao Shi had died before she returned to the Marquis Fu. Gu Yan died of a heart attack. Yao Shi might not have been able to withstand the shock of her son's death. She might have died of illness or hanged herself. Without the protection of her mother and younger brother, she was like a rootless duckweed in the dream. She had the title of the Marquis Fu's daughter, but she lived like an outsider. Jiao Jiao. Little Jing Kong raised his injured little finger and walked in pitifully. Gu Jiao came back to her senses and turned to look at little Jing Kong. What's wrong? Little Jing Kong walked in front of Gu Jiao and let Gu Jiao see his bleeding little finger. It's injured. Gu Jiao pulled his little finger and looked at it. How did you get injured? I smashed walnuts. Little Jing Kong said pitifully. The walnuts were brought back by Gu Jiao from the market. Some people used vegetables to exchange for her mountain goods. Some people used eggs to exchange for her mountain goods. She was usually too lazy to care. Sometimes she would be shocked by the things inside when she carried them back. Be careful next time. Gu Jiao did not forbid him from smashing walnuts again. It was inevitable for children to stumble. She was not a parent who would give up eating for fear of choking. Gu Jiao took out iodophor and cotton swabs from the medicine box to disinfect little Jing Kong's wound. It's okay. It's not serious. You don't need to apply medicine. I want to blow on it. Little Jing Kong blinked his big eyes and said. Gu Jiao blew on his wound. Little Jing Kong was not a delicate child. Compared to the pain from practicing martial arts, this small injury was not painful at all. He just wanted to rub on Jiao Jiao's wound. Little Jing Kong went out happily after he got the chance to blow on his wound. Gu Jiao threw the used cotton swabs into a special basket and put the unused iodophor back into the medicine box. She was so focused on cleaning little Jing Kong's wound that she did not look at it carefully. Now that she looked at it, Gu Jiao realized something was wrong. Why are there so many medicines suddenly? There were two types of medicines in her medicine box. One was first aid medicine, which she put in when she was a doctor in the research institute. She risked her life in the organization, and these medicines could save her life. The other type of medicine appeared after she came here. For example, Gu Yan's anti-heart failure medicine, Madame Yao's antidepressant medicine, and the anesthetic medicine that was used for Xiao Liulong surgery. But no matter which one it was, she could use it to treat her illness. Now, these 6-flavor Rehmannia pill, 7 steps aphrodisiac tea, nourishing kidney energizing pill, these strange tonics were one thing, but in the most eye-catching position in the center, there was actually a box of bright, shiny, raw, medicinal products lying on the floor. Gu Jiao, who touched her medicine box. Why did it suddenly become so indecent? After Madame Yao returned to the hot spring villa, she decided to tell Gu Yan and Gu Jinyu the truth. Marquis, Gu hesitated. This isn't it too hasty? It was nothing to tell Gu Yan, but he liked Gu Jiao so much. If she told him that Gu Jiao was his biological sister, he would be surprised and happy. Jinyu was different. She had always been the only daughter in the family and was used to being pampered. If she suddenly found out that she was not her parents' biological daughter, she would definitely be devastated. Jinyu will be sad. Marquis, Gu said softly. Madame Yao frowned. She will be sad, but won't Jiao Jiao be sad? Jiao Jiao also just found out that she is not Gu San Lang and his wife's biological daughter. Marquis, Gu said sternly. How is that the same? What kind of family is the Gu family? And what kind of family is the Marquis family? That girl, Jiao Jiao will be very happy when she finds out about her identity, but Jinyu will be devastated. Happy? Madame Yao shook her head. I can't tell. Gu Jiao's reaction was so calm that it was almost cold. When she did not know about her identity, she was not so cold to her. When she suddenly became her mother, she seemed to have opened a door in her heart. Madame Yao thought that Gu Jiao was unable to accept her because her relationship with Gu San Lang and his wife was too deep. She did not suspect anything. Marquis Gu saw that his wife's expression was not very good and quickly softened his tone, saying, Jiao Jiao is our child, and so is Jinyu. Jiao Jiao must know the truth because she has to return to the manor. Jinyu does not need to return to the Gu family, so why tell her? Madame Yao had seriously considered whether to send Jinyu back or not. To be honest, she had raised Jinyu for so many years and had long developed feelings for him. She naturally could not bear to send Jinyu away. Moreover, Gu Sanlang and his wife had already passed away. Jinyu would be an orphan if he returned. But the final decision was not made by them, but by Jinyu and the Gu family. After all, Jinyu was a member of the Gu family. Even if his parents were not here, his grandparents and uncles were. They had the right to take Jinyu back. Then there was Jinyu himself. If he insisted on going back, she could not stop him. Madame Yao treated Gu Jiao the same. She completely respected Gu Jiao's decision. When it came to the issue of recognizing each other, she treated the two children equally. But in Marquis Gu's eyes, Gu Jiao returning to the manor was a gain, but Jinyu returning to the manor was a loss. This was a bit unfair to Jinyu. I do not agree, Marquis Gu said. Madame Yao said, the more you want to recognize Jiao Jiao, the more the Gu family wants to recognize Jinyu. Marquis Gu thought, I don't want to recognize that girl. Why would I want to recognize her? To beat myself? Marquis Gu only said half of the Gu family's matters. He only said that Gu Jiao's childhood had not been easy, but he did not dare to say that the Gu family had bullied her terribly. He was afraid that Madame Yao would be sad. But if he did not mention it now, he was afraid that Madame Yao would fall into that family's trap. Marquis Gu deliberated for a moment, then said, I think that family has some bad intentions. It's best if we don't interact with them. What happened? Madame Yao asked. Marquis Gu told her about how the Gu family had used Gu to replace Gu Jiao. There was such a thing? Madame Yao frowned. Then didn't Jiao Jiao suffer a lot in their home? Marquis Gu quickly said, I've already taught them a lesson. Madame Yao was now impatient to recognize her daughter. Thinking of the hardships she had suffered these years, Madame Yao wished she could give her life to her. Marquis Gu coughed lightly and said, Look at the Gu family situation. We cannot let Jinyu go back and suffer. Madame Yao said, Of course I won't let her suffer. She is also my child. There were times when she had not treated Jinyu well. She did not understand why she could not be a good mother. Now that she knew the truth of her birth, she was relieved. Jinyu was not her biological child, so she could not dote on Jinyu as much as she did on Gu Yan. But from today onwards, she would continue to dote on Jinyu as a foster mother, with the love of Gu Sanlang and his wife. Madame Yao said, regardless of whether Jinyu returns to the Gu family or not, she will still be my child. Hearing Madame Yao say this, Marquis Gu was relieved. As long as Madame Yao did not insist on sending Jinyu away, Jinyu would not leave them. That night, the husband and wife called Gu Yan and Gu Jinyu to their room and confessed to them about the mistake. Marquis Gu said seriously, You also know that child. He is the little medicine boy from Return of Spring Hall. As expected, Gu Yan's eyes lit up. Originally, when he heard that Gu Jinyu was not his biological sister, he did not have much of a reaction. But when he found out that his sister was Gu Jiao, he was so happy that he could fly. Although Gu Yan forced himself to remain seated, Marquis Gu already had an image in his mind. Gu Yan raised his hand like a charlatan, running around the room excitedly. Ugh! Marquis Gu held his forehead. Stop thinking. In contrast to Gu Yan's excitement, Gu Jinyu felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She did not expect that she was not her parents' biological daughter. That wild girl that everyone looked down on was the real one. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are read for free. Novels with a deeper meaning that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg com/8964-2 HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 92. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with substance that cannot be found online are all available here. Gu Jinyu felt as if she had fallen from heaven to hell overnight. Shock, fear, sadness, and the grievance of losing her parents intertwined in her heart. It was like a huge net that trapped her. Mother wants to find a time to arrange for you to meet with the Gu family. Madame Yao said a lot more after that, but Gu Jinyu did not hear a single word. Yao Shi gently took her hand and allowed her to rest properly. That night, Gu Jinyu lay on the luxurious and soft bed. It was the first time she had experienced sleepless nights. A strong wind blew outside the room, rustling the branches and leaves. Gu Jinyu lifted the blanket and got out of bed. She opened the door, and a gust of wind blew her robes and hair. "Ah, miss, why did you come out? It's so windy. Be careful not to catch a cold." The young servant girl on night duty hurried forward to help Gu Jinyu into the room. Gu Jinyu calmly said, "I can't sleep. I want to go out for a walk." "Ah, but it's so late," the young servant girl said. Seeing that Gu Jinyu had no intention of returning to the room, she swallowed her words of advice. "Then, miss, please wait. I'll get you a cloak." "Okay." Gu Jinyu nodded. The young servant girl found a soft cloak from the wardrobe and put it on Gu Jinyu. Gu Jinyu looked down at the cloak she was wearing and suddenly murmured, "5 flowers, a golden fur coat. The wind will be exchanged for fine wine." The young servant girl asked in a daze, "Miss, what's wrong? Why are you suddenly reciting poetry? Do you want to compose a poem?" The young servant girl did not understand poetry. The original Yuru did, but unfortunately, Yuru had been chased away by Gu Yen. Gu Jinyu lifted a corner of the cloak and murmured, "Do you know what a golden fur coat is? It's what I'm wearing. Some people can't afford this kind of clothing even if they don't eat or drink for several lifetimes." The young servant girl understood. She giggled and said, "Of course. Miss is the Marquis's daughter. You can't be compared to those commoners outside." "What's your name?" Gu Jinyu asked. "My name is Shaoli," the young maid replied. After Yuru left, Gu Jinyu's servants were selected by Marquis Gu. The ones who were transferred over recently were all unfamiliar faces. "Are you from a nearby village?" Gu Jinyu asked again. "Yes." The young maidservant answered with her big, bright eyes. Gu Jinyu looked her up and down. "You look younger than me. How could your family bear to let you be a servant?" The young maidservant laughed mischievously. "Young miss, you must be joking. Being able to enter the manor as a maidservant is a wonderful job that many people in our village can't even dream of. This servant has 4 sisters at home, and this servant's job is the best." Gu Jinyu was stunned. "The 4 sisters all have to do something? Don't you have an older brother?" The young maidservant nodded and said, "There is an elder brother and a younger brother. The elder brother is going to get married, and we're trying to get betrothal gifts for him. The younger brother is going to get married in the future, and he has to get his share as well. However, if we all marry well, the betrothal gifts we receive should be enough for them to get married." There was no complaint in her tone, as if she was born to live for her brothers. Gu Jinyu felt that her worldview had been turned upside down. She had been raised in the Marquis Fu since she was young. She had 3 elder brothers and 1 younger brother. Although the younger brother was mischievous, he only bullied her and did not squeeze her dry. The 3 elder brothers were all young and promising. Even if they did not like their branch, they had never thought of sacrificing their stepsister to pave the way for them. Gu Jinyu heard the young maidservant talk about some of the family matters, and found that Marquis Gu and Yao Shi were the best parents in the world. She could not bear to part with such good parents, and she could not bear to part with everything in the Marquis Fu. The next day, Marquis Gu and Yao Shi came to see her. Her eyes were swollen like walnuts. The young maidservant explained, "Young miss cried the entire night last night. You can leave," Yao Shi said. "Yes." The young maidservant fearfully retreated. She was very worried that she had not served her young miss well and had caused her to be sad. She did not want to be chased out of the manor. Marquis Gu and Yao Shi came to the bed. Marquis Gu stood by the side, and Yao Shi sat down on the edge of the bed. "Mother," Gu Jinyu threw herself into Yao Shi's arms. Large drops of tears fell onto Yao Shi's chest. "Don't abandon daughter. Daughter can't bear to part with you. Can't bear to part with father. Daughter doesn't want to leave you." Gu Jinyu's crying completely messed up Marquis Gu's heart. His heart ached as he said, "Silly child, when did father and mother say that they did not want you? Your mother and I have already discussed it. The decision is yours. If you want to go back," Gu Jinyu sobbed and interrupted him. "Daughter will not go back. Daughter will be filial to mother and father for the rest of my life." Poor child. If she went back, she would be an orphan. Yao Shi could not bear it either, especially after learning that Gu Samlang and his wife had doted on Jiao Jiao so much. She could not treat Gu Jinyu unfairly. She caressed Gu Jinyu's face and said, "But even if you don't go back to the Gu family, you should go burn incense for your birth parents." "Yes." Gu Jinyu agreed with tears in her eyes. Yao Shi nodded in relief. She stood up and went with Marquis Gu to visit Gu Yan. Gu Jinyu suddenly grabbed her sleeve and said in a choked voice, "It's my fault. I've occupied elder sister's identity for so many years and even snatched away the best mother and father in the world. When elder sister comes back, I will definitely dote on elder sister well, along with what father and mother have given me all these years. I will dote on elder sister." Yao Shi patted her head. The husband and wife went to visit Gu Yan again. Gu Yan did not sleep the entire night. He was as excited as a little bullfrog and croaked the entire night. Yuya was almost annoyed to death by him. The quiet and indifferent young master was still the cutest. Gu Yan was so happy that he even forgot to roll his eyes at his father. Gu Yan said, "She likes me." Yao Shi looked at her son dotingly. "Mother knows." Gu Yan said again, "I also like her." Yao Shi smiled and nodded. "Yes." Gu Yan sat up straight. "I want to go find her." Yao Shi held her son's hand and softly said, "Give her some time to digest this." Gu Yan suppressed the 10,000 little ants in his heart. "Oh, okay." In the village, Gu Jiao did not hide her identity from her family. Xue Ningxiang was also present. Because Gu Jiao was injured, the matriarch could not eat Xiao Yolang's cooking. Thus, she called Xue Ningxiang over to help cook. After she finished cooking, the matriarch asked her to eat with Go Hua. The old madam asked about Yao Shi and Marquis Gu at the dining table, so Gu Jiao casually told her about their identities and the fact that she had been swapped. Everyone in the room, except for Go Hua, understood that Gu Jiao was actually Gu Jinyu, and Gu Jinyu was actually Gu Jiao. Their identities had been swapped. However, Gu Jiao's tone was too calm. Those who did not know would have thought that she had said something like eating cabbage tonight. Xue Ningxiang's jaw almost dropped. The neighbor that she had been living with for so long was actually the Marquis's daughter? She was eating at the Marquis's daughter's home. Xue Ningxiang felt that she could not hold her chopsticks steadily. She looked at the matriarch, Xiao Lulang, and little Jingkong. She found that other than being surprised when they heard that Gu Jiao had been swapped, they were very calm. Don't you think that Jiao Nyang's identity is very powerful? Her father is the Marquis, the matriarch. She once beat up the most powerful man in the country of Zhao. A mere Marquis is nothing. Xiao Lulang, second-rank Marquis. He only has a title, but no real power. Little Jingkong, a big bad guy who only knows how to bully women and children. How powerful can he be? Humph. Xue Ningxiang stared at the table full of calm neighbors, dumbfounded. She seemed to have discovered something extraordinary. After dinner, Xuan Xiang asked Gu Jiao to go back to the room and lie down. She would clean up. Gu Jiao was indeed a little weak, so she did not argue with her. After thanking her, she went back to the room. Xuan Ningxiang went to wash the dishes. Little Jing Kong went to walk the dogs. Xiao Lulang boiled the medicine he got from Huichun Hall and brought it to Gu Jiao. The door was open. He hesitated for a moment, but still knocked lightly. Gu Jiao closed the medicine box and looked up. "What's the matter?" Xiao Liulang's gaze swept past her small medicine chest without leaving a trace. He said with a stern expression, "The medicine is ready. It's for reducing fever." "Oh." Gu Jiao pushed the small medicine box to the side and reached out to take the medicine from him. She didn't like to drink bitter medicine, but seeing that he had personally brewed it, she still forced herself to drink it without leaving a single drop behind. She returned the medicine bowl to him. "Thank you." Xiao Lulang said lightly, "It's nothing." Gu Jiao looked at his back and said with a smile, "I'm talking about the medicine you applied for me last night." Xiao Liulang's back stiffened. When Gu Jiao woke up, she found that her wound had been treated. Her whole body smelled like medicine, not to mention that there was a piece of cloth covering her wound on her back. The old lady would not be able to do such a meticulous thing. Xiao Lulang didn't turn his head, but he could feel her gaze on his back. He couldn't help but think of her naked back and the curved shape of her body pressed against his. Seeing this kind of thing at a young and vigorous age really made him want to die. Xiao Liulang's throat became dry. He calmed himself down and said with a serious face, "It's nothing." After he finished speaking, he took the empty medicine bowl and ran out with his hands and feet. Looking at his back as he ran away, Gu Jiao sighed and muttered, "It seems like he saw a lot." Today, Xuan Ningxiang helped Gu Jiao apply the medicine. The door was actually closed, but Xiao Lulang looked at the closed door and felt uncomfortable. He grabbed a bucket and went to the entrance of the village to get water. When Gu Jiao was halfway through applying the medicine, someone knocked on the door. "I'll go take a look." Xuan Ningxiang put down the medicine and walked out of Gu Jiao's room. He closed the door for Gu Jiao and opened the door to the central room. He looked at the middle-aged man with a scholarly aura and asked, "Who are you?" Principal Li smiled. "I am the principal of Tianxiang Academy. My surname is Li. May I ask if this is Xiao Liulang's home?" When Xuan Ningxiang heard that it was the place where Xiao Lulang studied, he politely said, "So it's the principal. Are you looking for Lulang?" He went to get water. When you came over from the entrance of the village, did you not see him?" Principal Li's carriage stopped at the entrance of the village, but he walked over. The sky was a bit dark, so he did not pay too much attention to it. Xuan Ningxiang said, "Wait, I'll go find him." Principal Li suddenly stopped Xuan Ningxiang. "That may I ask if Jianyang is here?" Xuan Ningxiang tilted his head. Gu Jiao invited Principal Li into the central room and poured a bowl of herbal tea for him. Little Jing Kong was a bit heady these days, so Gu Jiao bought some chameleon plant from the mountain and boiled it for him to drink. Principal Li had never drunk such a disgusting tea before, but he still forced himself to drink a big bowl of it. Gu Jiao saw that he liked it so much, so she poured him another big bowl. Principal Li, who found it hard to refuse such kindness, was speechless. After drinking 3 big bowls of tea in a row, Gu Jiao shook the teapot and said, "There's no more." Principal Li, who almost vomited, thought, "Thank God, there's no more." Gu Jiao asked politely, "Is there a reason why Principal Li specially came here today? You've visited my mother many times, and I haven't thanked you properly yet." Principal Li said, and handed the bundle in his hand to Gu Jiao. "The peach tree in the backyard has borne fruit, and my mother asked me to bring some to you." Gu Jiao took the bundle. "Thank you, old madam." Principal Li said gently, "My mother is old, and sometimes she doesn't even know how many sons she has, but she always remembers you." "How many?" Gu Jiao looked at him strangely. Principal Li blurted out his family's affairs, and he smiled awkwardly. "I have 4 older brothers, and my mother had me when she was old." No wonder Principal Li was not even 40 years old, But old Madam Li was already so old. My brothers are all in the capital, and I haven't seen them for many years. Principal Li didn't say anything else. Gu Jiao didn't ask any more questions. Principal Li said, "There's another thing about Lu Lang today." Gu Jiao asked, "What's wrong with my husband?" Principal Li replied, "I'm sure you've heard that he passed the imperial examination, but there's something else that I'm not sure if you know about. He originally had the chance to become a Junior 3 scholar, but someone bribed the examiner to change his script, causing him to hand in a blank script for the third round." Gu Jiao's gaze turned cold. This was the college entrance examination in ancient times, and there were actually people who cheated. Principal Li continued, "Retaking the examination is a serious matter, and I'm not sure why he didn't retake the examination. Maybe he didn't want to, or maybe the government intervened." Principal Li had a student who worked in the examination hall of Pingqing Prefecture, so he was able to find out some information, but he didn't know everything. Principal Li asked, "Did he mention this to you?" Gu Jiao shook her head. "No. His character is not strange. He keeps everything to himself," Principal Li said. "I asked him about it after the incident, but he refused to say. Actually, it's not a big deal that he didn't get into the Junior 3 scholar examination. As long as he passes the county-level examination, he will have the opportunity to take part in the provincial examination. And that's the real beginning." Gu Jiao asked, "But now that the atmosphere had reached this point, it would be unreasonable if there wasn't a but." Principal Li sighed and said, "He doesn't seem to be very willing to take the provincial examination." After thinking for a while, he corrected her. "That's not right. When I mentioned the provincial examination, he didn't have much of a reaction, but when I mentioned that he would have to go to the capital after the provincial examination, his face darkened. I don't know if this is accurate, but it seems like he didn't study hard in the past, because he wanted to avoid going to the capital to take the imperial examination." "He didn't want to go to the capital?" Gu Jiao rubbed her chin and fell into deep thought. Principal Li went to look for Gu Jiao to understand the situation, but he didn't get much out of it. So he left helplessly. He really didn't want such a good seedling to waste his talent in a small village. As he was thinking about this, Principal Li accidentally bumped into Go Wa, who had rolled out of the courtyard. Go Wa rolled down from the haystack. Fortunately, he managed to stop himself from bumping into someone, otherwise, he would have rolled into a puddle. Principal Li hurriedly picked the little guy up from the ground and patted the dust off his body. "Are you okay? Did I hurt you?" Go Wa looked at him with wide, dark eyes. Go Wa had been teething recently, so he had a lot of saliva. As he drooled, he looked at Principal Li in confusion. Suddenly, he opened his small mouth and called out, "Father." Principal Li's body trembled. Xuanningsiang, who came out of Gu Jiao's courtyard, also trembled. Go Wa was learning how to speak. When he saw a woman, he would call her mother, but he hadn't called her father yet. After all, he didn't have a father. Xuanningsiang's heart was filled with awkwardness. She wanted to find a hole to bury Go Wa and herself. She quickly walked over and carried Go Wa over. She said embarrassedly, "I'm sorry. This child doesn't know anything. Please don't take offense." Principal Li smiled. "It's fine." Xuanningsiang hurriedly carried Go Wa away. Unexpectedly, Go Wa turned his head and called out to Principal Li, "Father." Xuanningsiang was so embarrassed that she wanted to cry. "Child, don't mention that your father is dead. Even if he isn't, you can't be the principal. What are they? What are you? Where did you get the ability to blindly call someone your father? Calling you Gua. You really do have the guts of a dog." Xuanningsiang carried her son and ran back to the house. She closed the door and bolted it. Principal Li laughed and shook his head. "Father? In this lifetime, he probably wouldn't be able to be a father." Xuanningsiang carried her son back to the house and placed him on the bed. She sternly corrected him. "Go Wa, you don't have a father." "Go Wa, father." Xuanningsiang, not father. "Father." Xuanningsiang. "I said I don't have a father. You're not allowed to call me father." "I don't." Go Wa crawled out, "Father." Xuanningsiang was about to go crazy because of her son. If you blindly call someone your father again, I won't be able to hold down your father's coffin. Xuan Xiang was so angry that she kept shaking her pillow. As she shook it, a hard object fell out and smashed onto the chair. Xuan Xiang picked up the object. At first, she couldn't remember what it was. After thinking for a long time, she frowned. Isn't this? The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964/286/115615001. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikaj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 93. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. When Xiao Lulang came back from fetching water, Gu Jiao was sitting in the living room waiting for him. Gu Jiao said, "Dean Li came just now." Xiao Lulang took the water to the backyard and poured it into the water jar. "And I met him at the entrance of the village." Gu Jiao came to the back door of the living room and lightly leaned on the door. "Aren't you going to ask what he said to me?" "What did he say?" Xiao Lulang casually asked. Gu Jiao lightly said, "He said you have a concubine in the capital." Cough. Xiao Lulang almost choked to death. No what? No concubine. It was not that he had never been to the capital, but he did not have a concubine. Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows. Oh, when a normal person hears that sentence, their first reaction would be, "I have never been to the capital. How could I have a concubine in the capital?" You only denied the second point. So, you have been to the capital? Xiao Lulang calmly said. So what if I have? Gu Jiao asked, "How did you get a pass to the capital?" The capital was the capital of Zhao country. The most important people of Zhao country all lived there. The security was very tight and normal people could not get a pass. For a commoner like Xiao Lulang, unless he passed the provincial examination, it was impossible for him to enter the capital. Then what about you? Xiao Lulang did not choose to directly answer Gu Jiao's question. Instead, he changed the topic and pointed the spearhead at her. What is the matter with your box? Gu Jiao's pupils shrank. Good fellow. He learned to use her secrets to block her mouth. Xiao Lulang walked towards her step by step with his cane and stopped half a step in front of her. Tell me where you got your box, and I will tell you how I got a pass to the capital. This was the first time he was so close to Gu Jiao. His breath fell on Gu Jiao's head. Gu Jiao found that he had not only grown taller. Gu Jiao could feel his youthful aura. It was clean and pure, but not only that, he was slowly growing up. He was about to become a real man. His aura was cold and dangerous, like a ferocious beast baring its fangs. Gu Jiao blinked and suddenly reached out her little index finger to poke his small chest. Xiao Lulang, I didn't mean. Xuan Xiang, who had just arrived at the door, covered her face, indicating that she did not see anything. Xiao Lulang and Gu Jiao's posture was indeed a little too intimate. At first glance, she thought that Xiao Lulang had pressed her against the wall and was about to do something to her. It felt good. Gu Jiao poked him again. Xiao Lulang. His chest was filled with the soft touch of her fingertips. After all, the two children had some friction before. Marquis Gu had Huang Zhong and an experienced nanny accompany her. Gu Yan had been excited the entire night and had only fallen asleep during breakfast. He was now sprawled on the bed, snoring loudly. He was completely unaware that he had missed the opportunity to go to the countryside. Gu Jinyu sat in the carriage. The servant girl and nanny sat in another carriage. Huang Zhong led a few guards on horseback to protect Gu Jinyu. On the way, Gu Jinyu lifted the curtain of the carriage window and looked at Huang Zhong, who was riding beside her. She said amiably, "Lord Huang, you've seen my elder sister. What kind of person is she?" "Ah, this?" Huang Zhong could not say. "An unfilial daughter with a violent temper who pressed the marquis to the ground?" Huang Zhong clenched his fists and coughed a few times. "Although I've seen eldest miss, I haven't spoken to her." Gu Jinyu smiled regretfully. "Me too. I haven't spoken to her seriously. If I had known that she was my elder sister, I would not have treated her that way. I'm so foolish. I don't even recognize my own elder sister." Huang Zhong thought, "She's not your biological daughter. Of course you don't recognize her. Look at the young master. Didn't he get close to eldest miss after just one time? It's not the same whether you're her biological daughter or not." He did not dare to say these words. Currently, the matter of the two daughters had not spread in the manor. Only he and his masters knew the truth. But the truth could not be concealed. It all depended on how the Marquis and Madame told the outside world. Huang Zhong had been here several times and had already heard all the news in the village, including the location of Gu Sanlang and his wife's grave. Gu Sanlang had died a violent death. According to the village rules, he was not allowed to be buried in the ancestral grave. His grave was very far from the Gu family's treasured land. Madame Su was buried next to him. It was said that Madame Su had requested it before she died. The carriage stopped at the entrance of the village. The procession was rather grand. In addition, the fairy-like Gu Jinyu had come. It inevitably attracted the attention of the villagers. Gu Jinyu had brought along an aide and was accompanied by a respectable maid and granny. The villagers had never seen a daughter of a wealthy family from the city. Their eyes could not move. "Miss, be careful of your steps." The village roads were not easy to walk on. Huang Zhong was afraid that this delicate daughter would trip and fall. Gu Jinyu held on tightly to the maid's arm. This kind of bumpy dirt road was really a waste of her wealthy feet. After the group of people walked away, the villagers began to discuss. Who are they? I don't know them. That man seemed to have come to our village a few times and asked around about the Gu family. Look, they're heading towards Gu Sanlang's grave. Could it be the Su family? The Gu family did not have such respectable relatives. The villagers could only guess that it was the Su family. Madame Su was not from the village. Her family was better off than the Gu family and could be considered half a city dweller. But after Madame Su passed away, the Su family had cut off all ties with the Gu family. When Gu Jinyu arrived at the grave, she saw a person standing at the grave. She was dressed in coarse hemp and had a slender figure. She wore a bamboo hat and carried a small basket on her back. Sis? Gu Jinyu asked tentatively. Gu Jiao paused in the act of bending down to remove weeds. She calmly straightened her body and turned her head to look at Gu Jinyu. Gu Jinyu immediately revealed a joyful smile. "Sister, it's really you." Gu Jiao glanced at her strangely. She ignored her and continued to bend down to remove weeds. Ever since Gu Jiao had discovered that there was a lot of weeds at the grave on the anniversary of Gu Sanlang and his wife's death, Gu Jiao had regularly come over to remove weeds. Gu Jinyu was ignored, but she did not back down. She let go of the maid's hand and walked towards Gu Jiao. However, her pair of exquisite embroidered shoes simply couldn't walk on the path of the tombstone, and she almost sprained her ankle. "Miss, be careful." The young maidservant and the old maid both supported her. "I'm fine." Gu Jinyu glanced awkwardly at Gu Jiao and motioned for them to let go. After that, she became more careful. She lifted her clean skirt and came to Gu Jiao's side. She extended her hand to Gu Jiao. "Sister, let me do it." "I'm not your sister." Gu Jiao said, "You can't do it either." This kind of dirty work was not something a spoiled young lady could do. Gu Jiao would only use a shovel if she needed one. She would directly do the weeds that she did not need. Gu Jinyu copied her and reached out to pull the weeds. The result was obvious. The maid and Granny did not know the truth, but the servants of the manor always knew the rules. They would not ask about things that they should not ask about. But although they did not ask, they were very curious. This little village girl was so arrogant. Their miss had lowered herself to call her sister. Not only did she not appreciate it, she even gave their miss a hard time. "You can leave first," Gu Jinyu ordered. The maid and Granny retreated 3 feet away. "You can leave too," Gu Jinyu said to Huang Zhong. Huang Zhong, who was pulling weeds, clapped his hands and also retreated far away. Only Gu Jiao and Gu Jinyu were left on the grave mound. Gu Jiao continued to pull weeds as if no one else was around. Gu Jinyu placed the straw mat and paper money she had brought on the ground. She burned the paper money with a match and knelt on the straw mat, kowtowing 3 times to Gu Sanlang and Madame Su. After that, Gu Jinyu maintained her kneeling position. As she burned the paper money, she murmured, "I heard that they were good people when they were alive. They were very good to sister." Gu Jiao finally reacted. She said calmly, "Does calling them father and mother burn your mouth?" Gu Jinyu choked. Gu Sanlang and Madame Su were very good parents. If they knew that the child was swapped, they would be very sad. They would want to hear their biological daughter call them father and mother. Gu Jiao glanced at her. "You don't have to burn paper money. I can still afford to burn this little bit of paper money." Gu Jinyu lowered her head and said in a low voice, "Sister, do you hate me? I know it's my fault. I stole your identity, stole your parents, stole everything that should have belonged to you. You should hate me. I don't blame you." Gu Jiao ignored her. The person who had everything stolen from her had already passed away. Furthermore, it was not appropriate to steal. Gu Jinyu was innocent. She was also the one who had been swapped. She did not hate her, nor did she like her. This person had nothing to do with her. Gu Jinyu did not understand Gu Jiao's thoughts. She only felt that Gu Jiao was blaming her. It was understandable. After all, she had taken advantage of her. She said sincerely, "Sister, don't worry. I won't fight with you. You are the eldest miss of the Marquis' household. When you return to the Marquis' household, I will move the courtyard out and return it to you. But father and mother have raised me for so many years. Sister, please allow me to be filial to father and mother." Gu Jiao was a little irritated. "Are you done? If you are, hurry up and leave." Gu Jinyu pleaded, "Sister, come back to the Marquis' household with me. I'm not going back." "Sister, what will it take for you to be willing to go back with me? Tell me. I'll agree to anything." Gu Jiao looked at her and smiled faintly. "Including you leaving the Marquis' household with nothing?" Gu Jinyu's expression froze. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896426/115612040. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.